I have push play. That's good. Cool. Get this thing started. Move that over here. Before we go any further, that reminds me, let me see. I will turn off screen capture. Mouse over everything else. Make sure I don't have anything weird, some crazy things popping up here. Minimize that. Close window. Art. Perfect. That's cool. Cool. Alright. While I wait for people to get here, let me check Discord real quick, make sure I'm not missing anything crazy. Hey, Edric. What is up? Not. How are you doing? I was just thinking of you earlier today because what was I looking at? I was looking at something. Oh, there was like your annual Twitch stats. Your name was listed on it for some reason. I'm trying to think what it was. Hey, Nell, Radigar. Maybe it was like 2021's most awesome viewer. Hey, Pattis. Goblin! The Goblin of the Hour. Am I missing anything here? Nope. It says I am live. Cool. And hasn't fired off in the M&M one yet. But that's okay. Got a work meeting starting in 5 minutes, so I have to watch VOD. Oh man, I'm sorry. Really not? That's pretty cool. Whitechapel. Thank you for 4 months. Alright. I'm gonna stop looking at Discord. Tuesday, howdy. Oh man, oh, I don't have a light source. I was like, it is pretty dark. Because I don't have a light source. Will I die if I fall? I don't think so. No, that wasn't even damage. Good. What are you drinking tonight? How's Plains of Power treating ya? Oh, this is an interesting point. So, the Shifty Gnome can sell you a torch, but he doesn't seem to be holding one himself. He's pretty dark over here. Got the time on Sunday? Cool. I've got no cash though, so I need 9 copper. I can probably make 9 copper pretty quick. Stab. Stealth. Evade. Let's load these up. Hey, Nick. I'm still memming. Don't want to mess that up. Spellbook is new. Spellbook is new. It's what, maybe 2 weeks old? Somewhere around there, 2.5 weeks. Keep in mind, all of this is placeholder, but it's clean enough for now. Cool. Let me run over here real quick. See if I can stab something, since I do have an ability called stab. I love that, I love seeing my skills go up. Okay. Oh, a beast. Yeah, I should be attacking skeletons, not snakes. Snakes don't have any cash on them. Oh, I did not look at my hit points. I was like, I mowed through that guy. Let's see if I die. Maybe, well, I think Nick did say that rogues were overpowered. His regen just popped him up. That's not good. This is a close one. I just need one solid hit on him, and it didn't work. Son of a gun. Son of a gun. But that's good. That just indicates that I'm not too overpowered. Ow. Alright. We don't have to go far to get my corpse. Yeah, that was definitely a tactical mistake. But did you say they were overpowered at one point, Nick, and you just fixed them? Also read the tooltip for stab. When landing, so stabs your target for 1 to 125. When landing from behind your target, backstabs your target for 2 to 400. Triggers cooldown of subterfuge abilities. Alright. Mem these again. Kill one thing. Get some loot. Sell the loot. Buy a torch. We've got ourselves a game. Who's that over there? Oh, Nick Monk. This is a very straightforward plan. Okay. Has the team grown at all since you were here more actively? Yeah, it has considerably. I think, because I'm not going to count the couple of times that you've been by in the last couple of months. So, ooh, I got stunned. We are now currently, all right, got silver, can get torch. Hey, sneaky Russian. So, yeah, a year. It's been a while then. So right now we've got me, obviously, Nick, because he's in chat. We've got Pattis, 3D artist. Zukin, 3D artist. Goblin, who's going to be here. Well, he's here now. He's in chat, but we'll bring him in a second. Concept art. We've got... So, the Pilgrim 1, but John, programmer. We've got Jim Fogg, Gary, programmer. We've got I feel bad because I'm gonna we've got Hamad, who's doing world building lore. World building, not like environment art, but world building lore and illustration. And we've got a person that we've got looped in. We'll see if he's going to get engaged, get involved on the design side. And so I'm not going to say anything until that's more active, more final. So that takes us up to 9, and I feel like I'm missing somebody obvious. Am I? You didn't hear Ollie? Then that would be 10. I was wondering if I'd forgotten Ollie, but I was like, oh yeah, because I was only doing people in chat first. Okay, yeah. Don't tell Ollie. Don't tell Ollie that he got forgotten. He's booted off the team. What does he even do anyway? Dantron. Moving to Germany. Badass. Sorry, I guess because I had a guest on last week, I turned off this splash. So Dantron, thank you very much for 18 months of subscription. And Dantron said, hey, we got the news. We're moving to Germany. So I'll turn on the whatchamacallits again after Goblin is done here. But that way we don't have a bunch of stuff going on in the background. Is the Shawn guy still on the team? You could say that. Hey, Sakash. Nine is right, you thought? Okay. Maybe I miscounted somewhere in there. Okay, Goblin, let's... Is Bunny still here? Bunny is not. About 3 weeks ago, I think, Bunny decided she wanted to focus on other stuff, and we talked for a bit. Bunny's always welcome back. You know we love her. But Bunny did contribute a ton of lore and a ton of stuff that Hamad and I we picked up and continue to work with. We've been working with the lore and the world building that stems out of it for the last couple months pretty heavily. Putting in a lot of 3 to 5 hour sessions a couple times a week, getting that organized. So the spirit of Bunny will live on until Bunny returns. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and see if we can use... Well, first I'm going to buy my torch because that was a mission, right? All right, cool. Now we've got some lighting. We're good. A little less scary out here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just use the Slack huddle to get Goblin in, see if that works, and if not, then I'll do the usual Discord thing. So there may be some audio issues, but we'll work it out. Let's try it, Goblin. Say something? There are multiple moons to Homestead. So I cannot hear you, Goblin. Which is odd. It may just be the weirdness on my end. We could switch to Discord. But go ahead and check your settings, like you said. What if he was an actual goblin? Well, it would make sense. Goblin, if you look and everything seems right on your end, then I'll accept that it's probably on my end, and we can bounce over to Discord.
Yo, can you hear me? Can you hear me by any chance?
Oh, you heard something? Okay, so I know what I need to do then. I think.
Hello, everyone.
I can barely hear you. Oh, wait. Try it again, Goblin?
Yellow.
Okay, now I can hear you. It helps if I turn up my volume.
Sorry, my mic might be a little, I don't know, on Slack it seems to be a little low.
Yeah, but that's fine. I've turned you up. I can hear you now. Folks, can you hear him in chat, and can you hear him above the music? I'll turn him up all the way in
Hello, hello. Let's see. I'm gonna. I am not. I am the concept artist. Yeah. If you can hear me.
And you know what? I totally forgot. You're like, I wonder if he's a goblin in real life. He is actually a goblin in real life. We've got his profile pic up. I'm loud compared to him. Okay, let me try to normalize myself then. Everybody's always complaining that I'm too quiet. So I've got him turned up about as much as you can turn him up. I've got me turned down a little bit. And yeah. Cool deal. All right. So I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to get somewhere scenic again so I can just sit there. Hey, Joppa, what's going on, dude? We just tossed the water in, but about a month ago, when John got on team, new programmer, got in and immediately he's been working his games that he's been putting out are very sea based, very water based. So he's like, hey, I've got some water. Let's throw it in there. Oh my God, I can't see. All right, so let me not drown. Underwater's scary now. All right, so I'm gonna get over here.
I wonder how some light sources would act underwater. That could look really cool.
They should vary. I think at night you kind of see the one that I've got, right? But we'll have to see. Please don't put anything scary there. We're going to have to, but I relate. I sympathize with your desire to not have anything scary underwater. But can't do it. Nah, Joppa, we're definitely gonna, depending on the water. So that stuff will stay pretty murky, and then we'll have probably murkier and different colors and different amount of waves and all that good stuff. So John was actually just updating me on that capability in the future. So cool. I'll just sit here for now, and then we'll get into the concept art stuff. How does that sound? So Goblin, you want to kick this off?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. Where do you want to start?
Why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself, background, and then, you know, how you wound up hanging out with us, I guess.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'm an illustrator. I really like fantasy work, and so that's kind of where I started. And I've been doing concept art and game stuff for about, I don't know, maybe 7-ish years now. But I just kind of started like, you know, as wanting to be like a concept artist, maybe in like grade 11 or something, and I've just decided that's the thing that I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. And then I went to university and for the fine arts, so I have a little bit of a fine arts book background, and then just been doing concept art and illustration for D&D characters and stuff like that on the side for a while. And now I work for a lot of different types of indie games. So the last couple of years I've been doing like some indie games of my own. So I've gotten acquainted with Unity and all that stuff for 3D and 2D projects. Low poly, which is pretty close to what we're doing here. So that's good. And yeah, for the most part, mostly fantasy work is where I'm at. So, and as to how I got here with you guys, I was really looking forward to like, to finding something akin to an older styled MMO somewhere. And, you know, I thought to myself, like I gave EQ a try, and my background is with that is I've never played EQ, like as far as I was born too late for that, so I ended up playing World of Warcraft a lot, but I really I fell out of World of Warcraft pretty easily in the last little bit because it focused way too much on the game for me. So I was like, well, what about that older social aspect of MMOs? Like, I want that. And I found EQ, and I was like, well, why not just reskin EQ? And then I started to look for projects to reskin EQ in either my own way, or I even thought about like contacting the devs, being like, hey, look, I'll do it. I'll just do it. So anyway, I ended up finding your guys' project, and I just simply asked. I was like, hey guys, do you guys like need a concept artist? I'd want to work on something, and I'm in the position where I feel like I want to help rather than just, you know, vie for some sort of job, because I really feel like I have something that I can bring, as far as especially the classic fantasy stuff sort of feel. And so that's how I found you guys, and that's my background, I guess.
Yeah, dude, it was funny. You shot me a message, and I started checking out your work and was like, all right, absolutely, let's talk. And you hopped right in, and it's funny, you've already been knocking out concepts like from the moment you popped in. So it's really cool. And part of that work is we'll be looking at it as the first pass on the full player character lineup. Oh yeah.
Nick asked how I heard about you guys. So I started to look for games like EQ, and I started to find some EQ type stuff, and I came across Pantheon, and then I asked the guys at Pantheon, are there any other games like Pantheon, because they weren't hiring, and anyway, some guy, I could probably find it, but they dropped a couple different projects down about where things were, and I just reached out to your guys' Discord, and that's actually just it. It was like a 1-2, and it was like a day or two, of me thinking about it, being like, I just really wish, and it bugged me so much that I actually started to work on some other stuff. This was on the tail end of my other indie game, Witherhome, that I'm working on. I started to finish off the art on that sort of thing, and then I kind of pushed into this side, where it's like, well, I kind of want another project to work on, and that's always how it's been. I started art on a project, finished it, moved on to the next project while the programmers kind of keep up, and then that's how it is almost always. So, but I don't think this game is gonna.
You don't think you're gonna run out very fast?
Yeah, I don't think I'll run out of content anytime soon. It's a whole MMO.
Yeah. No, it was really cool, and you had shown me some of the art that you had kicked over to like another team to kind of look at. It's like, hey, if you're doing characters, I think this would be really cool, and it was fun. We discussed that, and it's been interesting. The thing that caught my eye especially was not just the 2D stuff that I was looking at, but I know you had mentioned like you feel like most strongest about the portfolio that you have up and stuff. But like earlier when I had linked one of the videos, it's because there's something about seeing someone actually work that your videos, plus the fact that you like bookended them with bookend them with a little animation, intro, outro, and just the music that you picked and sort of the vibe that you created. That video that I posted before, Seek and Destroy said it was mind-blowing. Me too. I actually called my wife over at one point because I was watching how you had like painted the nose, and so you painted the one nose, and then first of all, the process leading up to there, like the reference, and then using them to define the style in each one of the four or five, and then going through it and watching you develop them out of that style. Everybody's asking for a link, and I know you were like, well,
go ahead, get that link in there.
I'll have to dig it up.
I'll find it.
If you've got it, just post it in there. And so but it was interesting because when you chopped the nose off, it was anatomically correct. My wife's a dental surgeon, so we talk about facial anatomy and stuff a good bit. But I was like, watch this. You chop the nose off, and it was like a cute sort of stylized nose. Chop it off, and then rebuild it. It almost felt like from the inside out anatomically. And then you created a very different nose. It was more of like a perky sort of nose. And here, I'll link it in there. We'll watch it actually. And I was just like, wow, watching that process. And so for those of us that aren't artists, I love watching that type of process. So what I'll do is I'll click this here. I think you can see it. Let me check my monitor. I'll move it over.
So actually, I'll go over some things. So I don't really design by thumbnail anymore, but this project was actually an intermediate project back when I was in university. They had a bunch of random objects that were meant to be nothing from another student, and then they gave me that, and then I was able to like give a prompt. That's why the description's so like share. It was kind of like a I don't know, like a meta social media take and sort of thing. And it was weird because this was like different versions of like the archetypal females that you can come across, like the devouring mother and stuff like that. And it was just like it was its own thing that was totally experimental. And then also social media vying for your attention, and because there's like 5 or 6, what is it, 5 going at the same time at you, where I'm like, so like it was like, also because it's called bite size, because you're trying to like get so much content into so little time, and it was a totally experimental thing. So that's why I was like, well, this is really experimental to show everybody is my first thing. But yeah, it was definitely very fun and enjoyable to do, that's for sure.
So right here, right, if you look at the center one, the nose, It's got one nose. You chop it off. To me, it looks like, all right, then it's sort of an anatomical rebuilding of it. And then just kind of like work it back in, and boom, different feature. It's just like watching that in action. It grabbed me. So yeah, man, super cool. Yeah, it's interesting because the discussions that we've had so far on the concept side have been really fun, because those of you that have been following the stream, especially lately, following Discord, especially lately, you've seen that Pattis has been streaming and Zukin's been streaming, and internally, Goblin's been doing more like just Slack huddle type streams where we'll be there, and even if I'm like sitting with my wife watching dinner or whatever, I'll have my laptop up and an earbud in, and so I can see some of what's going on and like chime in a little bit on feedback. And it's really fun to be able to see feedback enacted on in real time like that. So we've got some stuff to look at. There's some, and then as we go tonight, Goblin, you had mentioned we can screen share and you can do some concepting, on stream even as we're going, and we'll maybe look at some of the Night Harbor stuff because we've got a lot of Night Harbor to work through. So that's definitely higher on our list. Even though it's funny, man, every time I look at it, I'm like, did something change? The lighting and stuff is just pretty back there already. So is some of the verticality in? Is that what it is? The stuff that that Pattis was working on. Is this Night Harbor? Yes, it is Night Harbor. And I know you guys have been looking at like the same zone for over a year now, year and a couple months. But our goal has been to not go broad until we've really figured out a lot of our stuff. And so we've basically just been refining the same areas or having a little dungeon or having one of our zones to zone over into or whatever. And then just keep refining. It is a vertical slice, but even this vertical slice will expand quite a bit in the coming months, because as we're starting to now get the pipelines figured out and really have a better understanding of what we're doing, and we'll be concepting more, etc. Part of the vertical slice, part of the fantasy that we've got to sell is the world sense, right? And the scale. And so we need to have those zones that you run across to get to the dungeon, not just, run down here. I can see the dungeon from here, right? It's that green door over there. Or it's just right over on the other side of that little sand column. That's not going to really produce the fantasy that we're looking for the proof of concept. So we'll be blowing this area out quite a bit. Night Harbor itself is going to be, we've talked about, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's a collection of 3 zones that are of decent size. And then we've got a sandy area over there that's similar to this one that will then grow out. And then we've got, we may go back into Fallen Pass, do that, and actually lead up into the Fallen Watch. The Death Valley zone that we have with the giants and stuff will likely be completely reworked, but again, we're shooting for scale in that one, and that will probably lead to some other zones so that we have a nice region. And then we've got some islands out here as well. So our goal is to basically, we've got a nice list, essentially, sort of what are all the things that we need to be able to illustrate? What are all the experiences that we need to be able to present for the proof of concept? And it's a pretty decent list. And so it'll be everything that you kind of deconstruct of something that we'd want to be able to show. And so like Nick is saying, like an island zone, well, that can allow us to do a pretty constrained temperate area as well. So then we can go with, get some green in here. You guys have been looking at browns for the last year and change, and so be nice to get some green in some different places, as Sakaj says, some trees and some plants, and go ahead.
I was gonna say there was that one piece that I did that wasn't at all Night Harbor, but it was like some sort of ancient ruin that had a troll and stuff on top of it, with some trees, and so there's going to be definitely lots of variety for sure.
And so we'll basically be blasting through that stuff. It's so helpful to have like the concepts, and it's going to make things move even quicker. And then we'll go down our list. And so like there was a, as Nick was saying, island zone or ocean zone. So yeah, we've got working boats now. Well, as boats tend to in these games, they worked and then they didn't work, and I'm not sure if they're working now. But the idea of underwater area, all right, we've got to illustrate some amount of adventuring underwater. Is that a full zone, or is that just part of a dungeon that's submerged, or is it something here? All of that. Scorn said ship-to-ship combat confirmed. Give Ollie and John a chance, and I've got the feeling that we wouldn't be shocked to see an attempt there. Sneaky Russian asked, what's your definition of success for this project, by the way? Do you mean the proof of concept or for the project itself? To us, success will be for us to continue to grow to a point where just through consistent effort and quality and interaction with our community, we're able to keep growing to the point where we're then able to make this people's full-time job and then be able to, turn a profit. That's success. Not dent the universe, not be bigger than WoW. We've got some humble goals. We've got some nice spreadsheets that show us the path to those goals. And so, but we can talk about that one more if you come back, Sneaky Russian. And I think a separate one. What we'll do now is let's go to some more art. So do we want to go into the character art? It's going to be an interesting one because I know people are going to have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I'm really excited. I have a pretty what's the word? Maybe different approach than a different approach than a lot of concept artists, I guess. Where I like to think of fantasy as less like history and something like a new adventure that we want to be kind of going on, and so. Especially with really beloved designs, like you want to pay homage to what is like basically iconic, but then also see what is special about our own projects, what makes us, monsters and memories. So like there definitely is a balance to be had, but I'm pretty confident that we've hit a pretty good area, and hopefully people like it.
Yeah, I think they will. And, it's one of those things too where we'll be iterating and always kind of looking at feedback, figuring out how that sort of relates to what we've been talking about vision-wise internally, incorporating changes here and there as we go. But also, I think as we work through the process and show people how things go from concept to being actualized in game, that'll also help them frame everything a little bit better as well. Zthrex, thank you for the follow. I'm going to have... Nope, that's not the one that I'm looking for. Desktop. I'm going to have another folder available here that we can dig into as we go, but... Cool. All right.
I would want to say that these concepts definitely the concept art process is like, especially with what this world has been. I spent a day or two just diving into the lore, reading about it before I did anything, and then I asked a lot of people what their prerequisites were, kind of like for the designs as well, to see like what do you really need in like a gnome, or what do you need in a like something along those lines. And I tend to definitely go, hey, like, what about this crazy idea? And it's really far out there, and then let it sink and sit with people for a bit. And then, but then I'll also go the other side and be like, look, this is what it would look like with a more tame approach. Okay. And then if there's anything that anyone says about like a certain design, I'm there and I'll just, I'll bang out that and see how it looks, like, so I want to say, like, as a concept artist, I'm not attached to any of my designs, but they definitely do have reason to it. I think similar to what Hamad has said before, when he was talking about in his lore discussion, like he was really defending his ideas because he believes in them. Not he's going to be the kind of guy that just defends everything and won't change or slip or anything.
Yeah, no. And the thing is, I like that you've pushed. First of all, you put it out there and you're like, all right, this is going to be kind of out there, but in the justification that you've had, and it's been really cool. Like Joppa just said, I took the time to read the lore before I started working on anything. That's a solid concept artist right there. I mean, honestly, it was really cool to see that you dove in to everything, and you could immediately sort of reference back what you had read that made you think that way. And then, as you said, you've done a lot of stuff where you'll put it out there, and I think my response has been like, all right, so that's on the very edge of my comfort zone, but let's see where it goes. And then as we're working through stuff, you've been really just awesome about taking the feedback and going with it. And so yeah, man, let's bring it up. I just ran over to look at those because I was trying to figure out what I was seeing in the background that felt so different. But it's almost like something with the fog or the lighting or whatever, because I was looking at that same sort of landscape or cityscape that I've seen so many times in here, and it felt different. It just, yeah, I'm excited. Cool. So I'll get somewhere. I'll get back to where I was going actually, or where I came from, and then I will park it and we'll bring up the characters. Cool.
And there's a pretty decent lineup as for a starting sort of thing. It's a pretty decent lineup. I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's exciting. Spent some time last night speaking with the owner of the art house, the studio that we've been working with for the robed character that I think folks have seen. I'm not sure if they've seen it. The image has been posted on Discord and stuff. Let's see. Do I have? I can also bring up another one and grab that one. I should probably have it on hand. So pictures. Oh, you saw the light test on LinkedIn? Right on. Yeah, that's the one that I'm referring to. So just in case people don't have it, I'll get it. Go to the website stuff. And yeah, so like this guy. So this robed character, because it'll be interesting sort of bouncing back and forth. So this is the character that they've made for us. We've yet to animate anything. The cloth's all firm and, not animated and all that stuff yet. But it's the studio that made this guy for us and did the concepts for us as well in terms of the sort of more technical line art stuff that this guy was derived from. Let's see. Here we go. So he's basically that guy, right? Can you see him? No, I've got him blocked. Let's pull him out. And we'll zoom in. So is this sketch right here. So that sketch became this guy. And so then yesterday we were running through goblin stuff and just showing the character lineup, which I will bring up right now. And for me, it's like I'm picturing how these things then go from one stage to the next stage to being the asset in game, and then even then, like sort of thinking ahead of what does that look like animated and all of that. So we showed him this, and he got so excited. Like it sounds like the team is there is pretty excited as well. But yep, exactly. That's what he said. It was like, oh, the silhouettes, the shapes, right? And so that's always a nice start. But all right, so talk us through your process, Goblin, and we can talk a bit about sort of some of the back and forth and how we wound up where we're at now. Let me turn my headphones back on. They keep turning off when it's...
Yeah, absolutely.
When they don't hear sound on the other end, they just turn off, and I cannot find a way to make that stop. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah. Please zoom in and go from left to right, and maybe we can start over with the wood elves or something like that, or whoever you want.
Yeah, we'll start left to right. People are going to have a lot of questions. Keep in mind, we may not reveal all of the details that justify all of the decisions yet, but do know that there are specific lore decisions that have been made that fed into this. So everything you're about to see has a background. We know when they arrived on the scene, why they are the way they are, all of that stuff. So cool.
All right.
Let's go through it.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the way I started with the wood elves. Well, okay. First, I want to. If you were to zoom out again, sorry, really quick. One thing that I wanted to mention is that when I came in here, I was like, well, I really, really want like a diverse cast, and not only a diverse cast, but something that the players can enjoy playing, and not just enjoy playing, but certain people will enjoy playing. And I consider and I know that mentioning World of Warcraft might be
it's fine. It's not that taboo. It's a good game.
Yeah. The one thing that I really like about it, as well as something like Age of Reckoning, so Warhammer, is their race diversity allows for players to play from one side of like a total different aesthetic and almost hate the other side, which is perfect. You know, humans should hate orcs and orcs should hate humans, sort of thing. Not saying that that's, you know, always the case, but the idea that you have these different players that have different perspectives and are able to be invested into the world and invested emotionally, where they actually are able to step in and then hate something, but that just shows the engagement of the whole thing. So it's like, for example, when I played World of Warcraft, I was an undead and I absolutely hated gnomes. I thought, you know,
how dare you?
Little, it wasn't that I hated gnomes, but I mostly hated humans, you know, for the, you know, lore reasons and stuff more so. And it was great because as a horde, you know, and especially as an undead, you know, we could do that. And even horde had infightings, which was super hilarious. So like, you know, like Tauren hated the undead and, you know, things like that. But then you can also go into Warhammer and you see that sort of dynamic where certain players, you know, get attracted to certain types of aesthetics. And so what I wanted to do with these is jump in a giant pool of aesthetics that certain players might relate with. So now if we zoom in, we can go into the wood elves. One thing that I really liked about them is like they seem pretty relaxed, you know, like they're a little unkempt. That was one of the little words that we had up there. Little unkempt, a little naturist, and they're a little more chill than some of the others. And as far as that aesthetic goes, you're like, okay, these guys could fit as like a pretty good like druid or, you know, something along those lines. And so it really helped the design to have that sort of. And I really did push a lot of the naturist stuff, and it is a little bit more high fantasy with the wood skin, sort of like sinewy skin in there. But then there was also some deer influences where their eyes are a little bit more deer-like and their posture is a little bit more deer-like. And then there were some variations that we don't have here where we actually have some deer-like, what's it called? Pattern types on their skin, and that looked pretty nice. And we're looking for a lot of different, I guess, separations for each of the sexes too. So you have the female and male, and obviously they look very different. The male definitely looks like an older, wiser type. And so I grabbed some of the eyebrows from Secret of Nim, so the Great Owl or Nicodemus. And, you know, I absolutely love those drooping eyebrows. It's almost like a moth or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that was like another aesthetic. And all these designs, they're basically like the most iconic version of the race. So it's not to say that there won't be variation and you will be able to play like a nice, clean-shaven, no leafy beard tree man, you know, but the idea is that, you know, this is the most iconic version of them that you can get. So yeah, that's the wood elves, I guess. And again, there's lots of lore reasons why they ended up the way that they are. And again, this was something that I definitely pushed because I think I hit and probably blew through some comfort zones on that one.
Yeah, that was one of the ones where it's just like, okay. This is we are now on the edge. Like we're 1 foot over the edge of comfort, but let's see where we go with it. And there was some iteration. It was cool.
Now let's go with the humans. So the humans, well, especially compared to the elves and the elves even beside those, we wanted sort of a base, and that's what I remember Shawn saying is like, hey, we need a base so we can understand like what kind of let's say anatomy are we dealing with when we have elves, like in comparison to something that's like the norm, or as we see it, like the norm, and just to make sure that we weren't throwing off into like a weird stylized sort of thing, like no, this is actually pretty close. So with those, I made the human like pretty athletic. The female was a little bit more curvy than all the elves, but also a little bit more beefy than the elves for sure. And then we have right there at the top, you'll see the swatches. So those are what we're thinking for the skin color variations of each race, and we'll get into some of those later down the line. But yeah, that's. Is there anything else that you want to say about the humans or wood elves?
No, I think we're on a good roll. And yeah, I mean, we can always come back, and I'm sure as we go through, people will either think of a question or we'll have questions and we'll come back and reference them. So,
and then the high elves. Well, one of the things with high elves was we wanted that sense of superiority from them, and we actually had I think it was a version where he had some asymmetrical armor, and I think it was either Zukin or Harrison. I forget who mentioned it, but they're like, well, what about that symmetry sort of thing, where symmetry is beauty? And so I was like, it's like, you know what, you're right. And so I added that other pauldron onto you know what, he was right. It really did land like a really good version of like, hey, I'm kind of better than you, and right. It says it in, and even as the poses, we have this on the male pose, we have this what's it called? I forget what that stance is called. It's a Greek stance for statues.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that specifically.
Yeah, I always do this. I have a word that I know what it is. I know the reference behind it, but then I just forget it. Contrapposto or contrapposta, yeah, totally. And I kind of like that idea where they were making statues of themselves, sort of thing. Like that's the sort of type of people that I'd imagine they would be. And therefore, like this was more of like a high art sort of thing. And so they stand like that, knowing that they are eternal in some sense, or
they are superior.
Yeah,
in all ways. Yeah. They've definitely got the attitude.
And then you see one of the things that Shawn was getting at before was there's this possibility of them being both the extremes on skin color. So we have like very, very white. We don't really have much in between, but then we have very, very dark. And then there is another concept where I had them with very dark skin, but I didn't end up changing over to the black hair as well. But so far it looks pretty cool, pretty beautiful actually in its own way, which I really like, especially because we're not necessarily tied to let's say the old Tolkien lore or something when it comes to this stuff. Because it is our own lore, fitting those extremes, and they are extreme, the high elves. So it I think it does really fit.
Yeah, I mean the reference that I pulled up was Grace Jones. Like when I was thinking of someone just like that had that stance and had that look and sort of power. So I've been wanting to like be able to portray something with some Grace Jones in it. Just because like I grew up on these pictures, right? And when I think of like sort of a character, a person that is a character that's just got exudes that kind of like, look at those cheekbones. Yeah. So when we were looking at the options for high elves, Grace Jones immediately came to mind. Yeah, I think they're going to be super cool.
And then the deep elves. These were super cool. Hamad and I one thing that I really like on these guys was I tried to make them a whole lot more angular. You see diamonds and triangles kind of diving down, and the ears creating this like triangular shape downwards, which is pretty darn cool. I like the idea, and we started with different sorts of eye colors, but Hamad had said, I really like the red eyes, and we ended up going even further because this actually This is a really far back from where I started, because when I originally pitched a design for these guys, she was almost a complete like wraith. She was almost like undead sort of thing.
She looked like a wraith.
Yeah. She was very, very like wraith-like. And it's because I wanted to get that like undead sort of like archetype in, and then it was like, no, that undead archetype can exist a little bit elsewhere. Instead, for these guys, let's look for that edgy, like sexy sort of like appeal to it. And I was like, okay, you know what, that's right. And let's go. And we went back and we had some really good conversations about like where emo punk and emo rock and grunge rock and stuff like that came from, especially with that I think it was some I forget what type of metal it was. It was like black metal or something. There was like that corpse paint on their eyes.
There was like the black metal corpse paint. At the same time, we were referencing a lot of like 90s industrial. And so it's kind of that nine inch nails era of, and crap, we talked about everything from back then, music wise, but there's a lot of 90s built into their influence.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I really want to get to is while there is, let's say, 90s influence built in, what I really wanted to look at was how they were inspired by and why they did the things that they did. And so instead of like, hey, because they did it, that's cool, let's do it. Instead, why were they doing that? What did they feel? They felt, like abandoned by the system. And so like, there's a whole bunch of other things that led to that sort of feeling. And that's what I want to get to when I do a lot of these designs. And I really ended up liking the corpse paint there. But I pushed away from some of the other hairstyles, but there might be a return to that for sure.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, these are an example, and so there'll be other options, and it gives us room to play with some of that other stuff. I just want to say I think I've mentioned it several times now. You'll see it on a lot of the characters. You've got hair down, dude. When I see this hair, it's like it always looks so good.
That's good.
The question that came up with regards to Not had asked you, all the elves have solid eye colors. So we haven't talked about that in detail. I was picturing there being for the high elves more. It'll be a subtle. You'll be able to see iris and pupil. I think that's something that I'd want to play with and see. Whereas for the deep elves and the wood elves, yet.
Yeah. For the eyes. That's something that when you get into customization, you're definitely going to be able to change, I think, a couple different things. The solid colors, they're not totally like designed, I guess, whether or not they are solid colors or whether when you look in, because you do actually see a subtle iris, or maybe there's like, I could totally see like at a variation of the deep elves having like black whites of their, instead of like whites of eyes, it's the blacks of their eyes like surrounding the iris. Like that'd be really cool. But also I don't quite know exactly there. When you see there is like a slight little change into the red. But yeah, the eyes are definitely like those are some details we can get into for sure, and we will get into.
Yep. Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's interesting. So we've started talking on the team a little bit about how we're going to best reveal lore, because there's so much stuff that we don't want to blow. Like there's so much history that we want people to discover, and there are events that we're gonna have to allude to because they're world shaping, right? And this world's been through a lot over the ages. So we'll be referring to some of it, but then other stuff, I think we're going to have to continue to kick around and be like, would that be too much of a reveal? But we'll say that that the high elves they consider themselves the true elves, and these other two elven races, they do have a specific story and origin that sort of reflects why they have that belief. So.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I wanted to mention is, harkening back to what I said before a little bit about the, like these are the most iconic versions of like the race. I also decided with that to design a little bit of their outfit to like really sell it, because at one point I had done, I think it was both or all three deep elves, high elves, humans, and maybe I did the wood elves, all of like a scientific drawing of what their anatomy would look like, but I left out the clothing, and so it was like, no, hold on, let's get back to the clothing. Let's make sure that these read as the most iconic designs, and then we can branch out from there. And so here we have the ogres with. We actually just worked on some of their clothing before. They were just wearing loincloths, but then I added some of this other stuff to them. So one of the things that you'll notice probably right away is that the sex, variation or archetype distance is very far. One is almost like the Goro, or is that what it is from Zelda? But then the other is almost like this bodybuilder, and it's like, one, we wanted to be able to have like something that you'd like an archetype, because we didn't have a super built let's say race that was giant, at all. We had the meat and the fat on them for the male, and so I was like, well, let's get this super built, like almost like an Arnold, but then like have her be female, and then that gave her own strength, whereas like even a little bit more sophistication was hinted at, and that sort of thing. So we ended up adding a little bit of adding the sandals and the intricacies in the axes that they have. Instead of just being like straight slabs of metal, they have these little hooks and little like engravings into it, like hinting at some stuff. A little bit of like the hairstyle with the ponytails. You have that almost Bushido sort of feel to them, where you're like, okay, well maybe they're more than just giant dumb dwarf, or not dumb dwarves, dumb ogres. And so that was kind of the, and you get a little bit of that with the shoulder pad, as well as the thinner lines on their clothing, like maybe they're dealing with intricacies a little bit more than you think, and so it's something that ogres can be super proud of. But it's not, if someone were to just like quickly give a nice like set glance at like, oh, those are ogres, but there's a little bit more subtlety into them than anyone might give them credit for, and ogre players can definitely feel proud about those other things that they know and the others don't. Yeah,
and we spend a good amount of time when we're talking about like their background and their worldview and their society and really the range, because we want players to be able to play ogres in all the races, but we've gone through every race with sort of these ideas in mind, of like, all right, so what's the range in this? And we want folks that have played like EQ ogres to feel comfortable playing these ogres, but we also want there's definitely some range with these guys, and they're going to be a lot of fun for us. So yeah, it's I thought I was actually going to say something profound then, but it didn't come out very profound at all. Yeah, these guys, their culture and their skills and all of I think it's going to be a lot of fun for ogre folks because they can be as silly as they want and still be pretty proud of who they are. So will ogres be able to enter all buildings if they have a shrink spell?
I was just about to say that.
Sorry. Oh, all right. So deep dwarves?
Yeah, deep dwarves. Actually, let's bring it over to dwarves as well, so they have a really good reference point. Oh, and a little bit of halfling too, yeah. So dwarves. So for those that were in the Discord, you might have seen this dwarf specifically before. One of the reasons why that dwarf is there, I think ultimately I was going for a super iconic thing, and I referenced Paul Bonner's dwarf, as well as some less human looking dwarves and more like really, I thought at that moment I cracked the code. I was like, I got it. You take the head, you shrink it down to his shoulder, like half of his head down to his shoulders. He looks really boxy now. And, his helmet's making him less so boxy. But, based off of these hardy fellows, we have these deep dwarves, which are, basically fitting the golem / undead archetype for the game. And you can see that with their spirit kind of glowing through these, basically what I considered them is like these shells or urns that might harness their soul or something. And those were really, really fun to actually make, what's it called? Yeah, to draw these, because this was another one of those ones where I was like, this is pretty crazy, and they're even larger than the dwarves, but they're still referencing the dwarves, and so that's one that I was like, this one's pretty crazy, but I actually think it fits this archetype for players to enjoy,
Yeah, and again, it's going to be a fun one to get into their differences. Later on, their origin, and I think they're going to be fun personalities. I'll say that about every one of them. Honestly, it's been one of those processes where, as we're working through the world building aspect of it and the lore and all of that, each one of them, it's like, oh my god, I want to play these guys. And each one, it's like it's a new favorite, but not really. It's added to this pile of just being super happy with them and not feeling like, okay, well, we've got this. It's more of like, oh shit, it's going to be so nice to like show what they built and where they live and kind of show how their personality differs from these other personalities, right? And so like, and they, I think between the work that you've been doing, the work that Ham's been doing with regards to like, really, really pushing and challenging some of these orthodoxies and not necessarily being, I think both of you are real good about pushing and not just accepting, okay, that's good enough. Right. And it's like, well, but why is it this way? Or, hey, this isn't differentiated enough. So, they're all going to be different. They're all going to be interesting. And our goal is to, hopefully, we'll see. What we're really going to be pushing for is one of the things that we've been doing as a means, as an exercise to kind of help us root them in the world is if we have a very multicultural, cosmopolitan kind of haven for any type of scoundrel or good person or whatever, like place like Night Harbor, part of what we're really hoping to do with the proof of concept is get all of them in and then let you see their personalities and kind of see why and how these would all actually relate to each other and sort of where some of that conflict is and how they manage it and their implications for the whole world in the current age, their implications with those interactions, like they do interact with each other for a reason. We are in a period where there's a lot of vying for power, but it's not direct warfare. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going off in a weird place now. We'll come back to it later. Are we good here? You want to go to dwarves or stick here?
Yeah, let's go to dwarves. I think someone mentioned, and you'll have to answer this for me, because I don't know what's what we're allowed to say. Are they going to be anti/dwarf, dark dwarf type, like dark elves to high elves?
I I think the simple answer is yes, but and so there
True.
right, there's those, it's like there's the tension, there's the conflict, and there's the way the conflict expresses itself depending on where you're at and what's kind of what people can get by with. Do they is there like sole purpose, like I'm just anti, like the deep dwarves aren't just sitting around going I hate dwarves. They've got their own mission, they've got their own purpose. All of these races, in the factions that they belong, most of them belong to, because you could play a likable deep dwarf if you want, right? But they've all got these motivations and bigger missions and plots and all of that stuff. So yeah, anyways, I'm not articulating that well, but you guys get it.
As far as these the dwarf female, what I really wanted was the dwarf had this big beard, and I thought, well, what's the opposite of that? And then this huge head of hair, and with different hairstyles, like ponytails and possibly like really thick like Viking dreads or something for the female. And like there's a couple of really cool aesthetics that we can hit with that. And I thought she needs to be absolutely built too. And so I gave her that big hammer.
Yeah, she's sturdy looking for sure. There was a question about leaning away from traditional female dwarf beards. We talked about a beard option, but not all of them need beards.
And that's something that I think a lot will have. If we go further into the halfling, actually, we can talk about what options. If we go to the halfling, we can talk about some of the options as well. Like for example, this halfling, and we're going to really show a little bit of the gnome as well. And then we'll leave it at that. But the halfling there, I actually have a version where I want most of the hair to be covering their eye line like that, but then to have one or two options that show their eyes, where they have their hair up. And so for players that do want that aesthetic where they have their hair up, they can. But for the most part, they're going to have the shaggy hair that covers their eyes a little bit, or is at just their eye line. And I think it really hits that aesthetic for them. So as far as what I believe someone in the chat was saying, I'm sure there will be beard options. I think, or about the female dwarf beard, is we do want to explore some variety within like the character creator or something where we'll have lots of options. Like let's say 8 out of 10 will be doubling down on this like really iconic look, but then we're going to have one or two options that say, hey, actually you can have this. It's not totally sold. You can deviate, and here's your options, where they do have, and they're just mostly arbitrary, not completely arbitrary, but aesthetic rules that I'm going to be doubling down on. And for halflings, it just happens to be the really big bangs.
Yeah, but they look great. It's awesome. So, Sakaj asks, will there be in-game barber option hair changing? Yeah, stuff like that's easy. And it's we'll talk about it more as we go, and we'll see if anybody's got strong feelings about why you should never ever change the way you look for 20 years. But yeah, we should be able to cater to that. Yeah, it's funny. I just the outfits, right? They feel nice and comfortable and chill. The essentially the jeans, right? It's like very nice vibe.
One thing with them is we're talking about whether or not they have whether or not they will ever wear their boots. And I was thinking, well, we could probably hit the texture up on the boots so it only covers up to about their ankles or something. So they're always going to be barefoot. I really like that idea. I haven't yet talked about that with the team, but it was an idea that I believe it was either me or Zukin or me and Harrison talking about that.
Nice. Cool. So
let's see. Then we're going into the gnomes, and the deep gnomes. Let's do both of them at the same time. The gnomes and deep gnomes.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry to interrupt. My headphones just turned off again.
Let's see. So yeah, let's I was let me talk a little bit about the gnomes and how they kind of got started. I definitely was I love the idea of like one of the main things is they're definitely like philosophers as far as their lore goes, and a little bit of tinkerers and that sort of thing. So one of the main things that I actually had was for inspirations was I looked at a bunch of different philosophers. So you can expect lots of different like beard options and possibly some whimsical options for the beard. But as far as hair color and that sort of thing, I'm not expecting that we go like pink or green or anything like that, but rather we're going to keep to the grumpy thinker aesthetic for these guys. And I really like that grumpy look for both of them. And the female gnome was like that very strict sort of teacher look that I wanted. A lot more skinny, almost like I think a pencil would be the wrong word for it. It's more like a really sharpened pencil that's down to just the eraser, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can picture it.
But yeah, the gnomes, you can definitely have this. One of the ways that I looked at it is, we might have ways to look like a really fucking badass like garden gnome or something, but then you also have this really what's it called, like get off my lawn sort of look without the garden gnome aesthetic at all. And so I explored what it looked like without the beard or without the hat and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And it's again, we've got some very passionate gnome people on the team, so give feedback. And yeah, again, with the as we go, like now that we've got the base set and we start to look at different armor sets on them, and those clothing options, I think we'll also start to see more of a range of their personalities as well in that. So and that's even before we do distinct faces or different hairs and all of that. So
absolutely. And then we also have the deep gnomes, and these guys were very, very fun. I wanted to capture like some sort of like very spastic sort of feeling to them. So their eyes are fucking wide. But then I also thought, it would be really cool to like see these little eyes, like, in the darkness, like if they were just totally like illuminated or something. And, there's just like five. And then I have the, was it the pondering orb meme sort of thing going on for the male deep gnome. And that was, getting totally lost. And that's hinting a lot at their lore as well. And yeah, so that they're a little bit, what's the right word? I guess the prompts were, it was spastic. What was it? There was a couple of them that, and I'm blanking right now. Maybe you can fill me in.
I'm trying to think of the words that we would. I don't know the specific words, because everything I think of is all so specific to their lore. And yeah, but these guys, whereas the gnomes are extremely focused, all they care about is the thing that they're focused on, for that period of time, whatever it be, 6 months, a year, or whatever. They're very, very focused. The deep gnomes, well, first of all, when you've seen what they have seen, you would have eyes like that as well. And when you've seen what they've seen, most other things just don't matter as much to you. And so they're a bit they're very eccentric. And again, they have seen things that now that's what fills their mind. And so while they are also equally focused, they're focused in a very different way. And it makes them very, very strange.
Yeah, caution gets thrown to the wind when they're really focused on the thing and needing to do the thing that they need to do, or what they're focused on, to dive into, either like exploring things in their specific way, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what I really, and again, I needed something at this point. I believe goblins were not even being considered as like one of our mainstays. So I was like, I need a little bit of, like goblin energy, a little bit. And, it ended up being a little more monstrous. But I ended up really loving the approach. Again, going really wild and then pulling back. And then we have the goblins.
Yeah, goblins were not on our list. Goblins are not listed on our website still. I was looking at the FAQ earlier today even, and I was like, do we add them yet? We'll see. But so Goblin joined the team and apparently enjoys goblins. And so in a little bit. And so in whipping up these concepts so quickly, to be honest, and with so much thought, it only seemed fair that we make the effort, and we were like, all right, you know what, let's include them. Over time, we want to include a lot of other player races, but we'll start with this and let's get it going. How long? It feels like you've only been working on this for like a week and a half.
Yeah, about a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe.
Yep. And so again, that was one of those things where at the speed that you've been moving, because it's been this and some environment stuff and other things. So it's like there's absolutely no harm in us poking around with it and see what happens. So.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is one of the things that I think the original art that I did for the dwarves was based off of, I think it was Ashes of Creation, that I went on to their sub thing of, and or their forum, and I was like I love your idea, but I just don't think that your player races match and fit the variants of types of players that would want to play an MMO. And so when I came in here with you guys, I really, really pushed the idea of there being some, like I did a little spreadsheet even of like, here's our, our neutral characters that we have. Here's our kind of like, what's it called, edgy characters that we have. And then, as far as monstrous characters, we had the ogre and the troll. And there wasn't a small representative of that. And so I was like, well, that's all I really want to play is like this small shithead. like I love that sort of thing. And so, but when you guys did your lore check on them to see like how they might fit, it was fucking like phenomenal. You and Hamad just banged something out that made so much sense and fit an aesthetic or a type of goblin that I hadn't thought about in so long. I think about a lot of types of goblins. Mine are usually more like nature or like naturalist or they're the simple pleasure type goblins. These guys, they're definitely more scheming. They're definitely like they know things, that and they're a little untrustworthy. That sort of thing.
A little.
So a little untrustworthy. Yeah, and that sort of thing is just phenomenal. And it gave me like a whole other thing. So you see a little bit of some loot or like some like his belt, for example. It kind of hints at that they're. I'm not sure what I need, what I can and cannot.
Yeah, no, you can. It was funny because I noticed you'd added that shiny on there, and I was like, oh, that. It has the effect that I think you were going for, because it did it to me without even really registering that it was doing it. And you mentioned the goblins. It's interesting because we had already put some thought into him as an NPC, and a lot of what we were thinking about as NPC when we then continued to work that a little bit and mentioned it to you was like, all right, I can definitely see this being a cool motivation and just kind of a set of personalities and stuff for a player character as well.
Goblin converting into a goblin MMO. Every race has a half goblin. This was there was this there's two things. One, I saw someone mention in the chat goblins with hair. I feel pretty strongly about this. So with the female and male, you'll see there's definitely two different like aesthetics right there. And this is that this race like variance that we want, but then also sex variance that we want. She's very knifey, pointy to the like and he's a little bit more clubby, when it comes to his proportions. But something that I also feel pretty strongly about is like him being like I've never added. I found and have tried ways to add hair to male goblins, but it just never hit. I never really liked the D&D hair on the goblins, but then for females, it just instantly clicked. It helps them read as females, gives them those little eyebrows that make them look a little bit more evil, that sort of thing. And it might be my attachment to trying to make them a little bit more monstrous. For the male, it works to not have that, but for the female, it definitely works to have it. And it might be one of those things there where there might be one option for hair, and most options are not. Different, like as you can see, he has a couple of spikes on him, so maybe there's spikes on his head or something along those lines. All right, I think that's goblins. I could go on.
I'm sure you can.
Yes. Let's see, and then we have the trolls. Trolls was one where I started in a completely different direction, and then you guys showed me the EQ troll, which I had seen before, but it like totally revitalized my memory. I was like, whoa, right, this is totally different. And then I jumped onto those trolls, and again, the male and female difference is huge here. The female feels a whole lot taller, and I just really wanted to find a way to, because I've had this problem with like World of Warcraft where I love the male Tauren, but everybody knows the female Tauren is not quite, as far as design wise, not quite there. And so I really wanted to push to make sure that the females didn't just get like a really bad take, of what they were. And so I ended up going with this bog witch sort of feel, and I feel like she really hit it. And again, the great owl / Nicodemus type eyebrows on the male troll there too, giving him a little bit of texture, a little bit of swamp-like texture of these like boils and different skin patches of coloration and stuff like that. If you can scroll up, you'll see the proposed skin colors as well.
Yeah, so it's gonna be we flagged again. There's the comfort zone, right? And so we were like, all right, yeah, these blues. We'll see with the cooler colors here.
It might be like that last blue might be a little bit too deep of blue there, but that purple might, the second to last purple there might work, but it's something that we'll have to see for sure.
Yeah, let's play with it.
And then those trolls, again, spikes, so maybe they have a little bit in common with goblins. But yeah, that's about it for trolls, I believe.
Yeah, their shapes though, so good.
Oh yeah, the giant, or not the giant, but the paunch for the female. That aesthetic really fit, and then really leaning into, there was like a conversation we had about how they would sneak around, and that was very fun. I'm not sure if you wanted to talk about that or if that's not even on the table or whatever, but it was a really good conversation, I think.
Yeah, so they for being so huge, they're definitely sneaky, and they're fantastic hunters. And so then we were joking about this like giant troll with this sneaky animation kind of going, very comical. And it's like, if you saw it, you would both, depending on where you're at, I guess, relative to the troll and how dark it is, you'd be equal parts like, oh my God, that's the silliest thing. And also just completely horrified that this thing's about to gank you. But then you were like, well, all right, well, maybe if they're using magic and sneaking, there's just kind of that bog witch kind of float, legs and feet kind of dragging in the air. So yeah, it's Yeah, it's going to be fun getting these guys in because they are all so distinct and there's such a range, and there's so much, there's so many like cues on the shape to play with the animations. When we go into animating, it's really going to, I think, be fun bringing these personalities to life.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's see. Oh yeah, they do have those those pickle noses as well. Oh yeah, and then we have the mandrake, or the little oddish boy, what was it, radish boy that we called him. So this was me about half a weekend. We had a really, like, I would say, like, essential conversation.
Essential?
About how we did the or how our approach is for the concept art, aligning on all that, making sure that we're not just, so everybody was on the same sort of track. And then referencing, I think it was Fraud's work, right?
Yeah.
And I saw this little radish boy in one of his art pieces, and I was just like, whoa, what the heck, a radish boy? And I was like, well, here, I'm just gonna throw it out there to see if, like, how wild I can get, because this is by far, like, it's not rooted in EQ, it's not really, planted in any sort of other lore that we would consider traditional, other than maybe, say, the mandrake. And so based off of that, I was thinking that, I needed to just go out there and pull out what I could. And I ended up coming up with this mandrake guy. And I thought he was fantastic as a playable race, though everybody else on the team seems to be leaning towards, no, he could be an NPC that's bothering the halflings or something. And I'm like, I'm going to give this guy a true chance and put him on the lineup.
We'll see how everybody on there. Goes. I was like, someone snuck in. Oh, yeah. We were joking about the idea of these guys. When you run into them, the first one's running around grabbing the other ones and pulling them out of the ground. So, yeah. I mean, I think when you were describing the humans all the way back, we talked a bit about, again, finding our range. And, my view has been that if we've got it anchored in enough of the familiar and enough of what people, I don't want to say expecting, because I don't want it to sound like it was just kind of like phoning it in or whatever. But if it ticks like the traditional fantasy boxes for a lot of who we've identified as being like our core base, our community that we're working for, then we can push in other areas and see what the full range is. Because, I mean, if you look at classic EQ, there's a lot of silly in there along with like the serious, and there was a lot of fun and like quirky characters and naming and situations, along with the things that were, I think, meant to be a lot more serious. But we say it all the time, like that classic era also just had a ton of charm, right? And so I think charm is definitely present in these guys.
The radish guy was definitely what I considered to be, like, if we wanted to land on a little bit more of a fairy tale feel, like, he would be the fairy tale, like, cherry on top that just hits it all, and be like, you know what, we can be a little bit more, either whimsical and or let's say whimsical, but yet we're still grounded in with all the other designs. So that might be like, it might be too far again, but absolutely, like, and I'm a little greedy because I already got goblins a little bit, so I'm like, yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to explore all these things. And again, I really wanted these to be like the iconic, and hopefully everybody likes them. And hopefully there's some people that also hate things, because then if they get in there and they hate something, like, that is also like a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I mean there should be things that you have a fun roleplay disdain for.
Hmm.
If you just happen to love every single one of them, I think that's great. Yeah, so the lizard race, as Zukin mentioned, we have discussed, and I wouldn't be shocked if over time you start to see some lizard race or races. I still
Hmm.
They're these super cute little tiny frog people that what is it? Justin Gerard? Um, is that the artist that had done something? I looked at it, I was like, man, those are super cute.
Yeah,
And-
the Justin Gerard frog necromancer that you had
yeah, so
shown.
over the years, as we go, we can't do everything straight out of the gate, but we've mentioned a few times that one of our goals. Okay, it's Runes' first birthday today, everybody. So he is officially one. He's big enough that he can get off my lap. All right, love you, buddy. Happy birthday. Yeah. All right. Um,
Happy
and
birthday.
yeah, so I think, we've mentioned before that we'd like to go broad. It'd be nice to be able to introduce more races over time and more classes and just have fun with it, and really balance out that breadth, and various things that you can alt up against that desire to just constantly go vertical with more and more levels and blah blah blah. So we'll see. Cool, man. For those of you that came in late, I'm gonna run back through these, just sort of show them off, because I saw a couple people mention that they got in after we had already sort of passed here. But
Hmm.
yeah, so I'm gonna zoom back in.
Yeah, uh, Crusher and a couple of the others that were hoping for monster races, just know that within the team you have someone on your side.
You do have a monster lover. And we had talked a lot about, so one of the features that we're looking at for later in development that's a bit riskier is the play as a monster. And I think we'll continue to discuss how we want to achieve the outcome that we were seeking with that system over time. I'll just put it as I'll put it like that. So
Hmm.
yeah. So again, for folks that came in late, wood elves, humans, high elves, deep elves, ogres, deep dwarves, dwarves, halflings, gnomes, deep gnomes, goblins, trolls. Brex, I saw you come in earlier. I'm hoping you find our trolls acceptable. And this little mandrake snuck in. Yeah. So there we are. So be sure to we do have to have the butt crack conversation, Monty. Good point. We'll have to concept them from behind at some point.
Hmm.
The let's see, Eminem Discord is right there. Be sure to join us. Oh, and I'll mention this while we're at it. We've got a new mailing list landing page that we've added, so we've updated it. Please join the mailing list. Get people that you think will like this to join the mailing list. We're at about 840 people on the mailing list right now. Would love to get 1,000 people on the mailing list going into 2022. That'd be so awesome. So please share it around and get people to check it out. And then we'll do some things like surveys and stuff via the mailing list that maybe we won't do anywhere else. All right, Not good to see you. I'm glad you were able to come in and check this out. Sleep good. Cool. All right. Anybody have
Yeah,
anything
absolutely.
else?
I think the one last thing that I wanted to mention was no, actually, I think that's it. I think we covered pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. I'm just happy to see that everybody, there seems to be a good reception with
Yeah.
a lot of these, but then not only the good reception, there's good variance that applies. So like some people don't like the gnomes, and some people love the deep gnomes, and then some people are super down with the gnomes, and something like the deep dwarf being more of a golem. And so there's lots of variance for lots of different players, and that's mostly what I'm excited about.
Cool. Yeah, I think the response has been really good. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we can always come back, and here we are, Night Harbor. Do you have the concepts handy, or then again, if you screen share, we could get that set up, and then it'd be easy for you to show some of it. But you've already.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me screen share here, and then you can get that going.
Okay.
So I can go over some of the thoughts behind Night Harbor if you wanted, and then maybe we can get into something like actually doing some new concept for it.
Cool.
And then you can talk and
talk.
Oh, was there? Did you by any chance want to share the dwarf? Because what I did to prove a little bit that hey, the dwarf had some because we weren't so sold on the dwarf at first, especially because he was so squished down, But there was a model that I did as well as a retexture of the dwarf. That might be worth taking a look at. Either I can pull it up or you can.
If you could pull it up, it'd probably be easiest.
Okay.
Because we had poked around behind the scenes. Zukin and Goblin were poking at the model that we had to start to look at some of the scale and stuff while the concepts were being worked on. The refined Holt human male model that we have. So.
Let me. Well, I think I have the two here. So, if you can see this, let me pull that down. But we got this was more of just like a proof of concept to say like, hey, we could get these meaty dwarfs and these little deep gnomes. I just extruded the nose, not a final thing. That was a change from a different design actually for the deep gnome. We had the nose a little different there. But yeah, this guy here is looking super buff.
Yeah, because as we were doing the concepts, it was a lot of my question was like biomechanics and all right, so how's this, how do the legs articulate, and what's the impact going to be on animation if we make choice X, Y, and Z. And so like this quick just kind of workup was done to illustrate some of that. And then it was easy to kind of visualize like, all right, well, even if the legs move, there's less articulation there, but there's more of a wobble. I think that'd be fun. So yeah. Yep. And keep in mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Keep in mind that we're going to be doing. Unless I'm just completely wrong here, we'll be modeling them from the ground up based on the concepts now that we have it. But they'll be informed by the work that we've done to date with regards to keeping the lower poly count, focusing more on painting in as much detail as possible, etc. So. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was something that I definitely wanted to give a try at because I've done a lot of texture work before, and I like being able to model. Especially, I'm very comfortable with 3D, and then going in and texturing. So I was like, well, I'd like to see this. I think I have the ability to get what I want, and then we can show, and then we can iterate and stuff like that for sure.
Yeah, and And to Joppa's question, the discussion we were having last night with the art studio that we're working with was on this. The goal is to, it's going to be a bit more of an investment up front, but the goal is to go with individual rigs and really push the animations to be distinct per race. It's one of those things where we know the investment's there, but the cool thing is the owner of the company that we're talking to on the art side, he really gets what we're shooting for, like insanely sort of cool how much he meshes with like our goal, even keeping things like low poly and trying to hit certain traditional looks and all of that. So it's cool because in conversations, I've even thrown some stuff out, and there's like pushback of, but that's getting you away from what you're looking for, and it's like, oh shit, you're right. So, Ali and I were talking last night a little bit about the animation and how we want to tackle it, and some ideas that they both have. So, yeah, it's it seems like things are clicking into place, and it'll allow us to because they have the ability to scale, and it'll allow us to be able to tackle this in a what I assume is, well, not assume, what's essentially a bigger investment, but yeah.
And animation is such an important part to making a character feel like alive. Like I know, and sorry to say this, but guys, I couldn't play EQ just because of the animations. They jarred me so much just because of that, and I'm a very aesthetic person, and that's kind of why I ended up where I am now. Is just I love aesthetics, and I do animation and on my own as well. So like I know what I like and know what I love, and I love to have, and I love that the decision to have like our characters really shine through and be different and distinguished through even animation. That's super important. And I'm glad everybody kind of landed on that too. I wasn't even part of that conversation though, so I was like just happy to hear it.
Yep. Not a hybrid mocap. It's going to be so essentially there's a GDC talk. It's funny because John from the art studio had mentioned it, and Ali was like, "Yep, I know just the one," and that's the one that Ali's been sharing with me over the last year. Essentially, there's like a, and I can't say it the right way, but Ali could. Essentially, it's like keyframing, getting certain keyframes in within a procedural way of like blending between those keyframes and blending transitions into other animations depending on the situation. There was a GDC talk where they did like a Rabbit Man. I don't know if you've seen
that's
it.
that's Wolfire. They had a procedural animation sort of thing. They're freaking amazing. They're phenomenal, and I think I should be able to find it if you want me to.
Yeah, that'd be cool. You can put it in there, but that's essentially what Ollie's been targeting and thinking about, since we talked animations last year. So that'll definitely be. And so the idea is like to get some very iconic. Get the keyframes that really sell, like the power and the movement and then use the procedural process to do a lot of lifting in that. So, you sent that over? Let's see. Cool. I will copy the link and we'll post it right in here. It's a fun one to watch. If you watch it, you'll get exactly, even if the animation's not your thing or whatever, it's a cool one to watch and see how they work it through. And it's titled Animation Bootcamp, an indie approach to procedural animation. Oh yeah, and then we will do like distinct idols and emotes and a lot of other stuff. So especially if this works, then that buys us the opportunity to add in more variety.
Exactly. Did you want me to go over some of this stuff for Night Harbor? I know that you've shown it off a little bit.
I showed it quickly because I didn't, I hadn't talked to you really about it, and I think it'll be cool for you to go through it. So feel free to go deep and show off some of the stuff that you've worked on so far.
Yeah. Let's see. So I have these other layers made up here, so we can go over them. So we have a couple different ways that we wanted to design up this place. But I thought, yeah, I'll just read it here. We have these underground canals that are rooftops of like an older civilization of some sort. We have this nice desaturated sandstone in comparison to the more saturated, let's say, walls and buildings over here, which is a nice hint of color, which I like. This was before we actually ended up doing any really deep dive on lore for what Night Harbor was. So a lot of this is mostly from me, because I was kind of waiting to do some stuff, but I knew that visually I could take a hack at it and get some progress done, and so there was definitely some lore that I read into, and that I don't think we're going to talk about now. And that's something that you'll be experiencing in game. But I did want to showcase, at least visually to the players, some of it. So you'll see it here, but it won't be explained too much. And so I made this as like a fill-in thing. It's not even necessarily, let's say, a vanguard to the sea. And this was just a little story that I ended up making on my own, but and we'll see how much of it ends up getting in. But there was a base within some other stuff that I really liked, like this giant door on this wall that's still closed today. And you're like, well, how do we open it, and all that stuff. And then we have these buildings here, this second civilization on top of that old civilization that starts to build with these types of shape designs. So you get lots of rectangles and squares instead of just the exclusive tall singular motif here. And then you have, this door cannot be opened by the second civilization, and then the second civilization stacks with stone or something on top to get over the bridge or over the wall, instead of trying to, because they couldn't open this and they didn't know how. This is just things that, I don't know how much of it will actually end up making it in or anything, but this was just something that I ended up kind of thinking about based off of our conversations prior. And then the current civilizations, what we have, because this is mostly a trading city, like Shawn mentioned, we're having like all these different cultures collide in this basic hub. And so I was like, well, that'd be really cool. Since they're a sea city, they're probably like shipping in new materials or cheaper materials, and they're using like wood for repairs and stuff like that. And then I brought in this other motif where they don't understand, they don't even care about the stuff before. They're just, building on top and that sort of thing. The sea colors, so this blue to contrast the orange, was super nice. And we might go with some different colors. Again, this was just my first pass on it. But based off of the lore in my head, I was like, well, we have this nice sun temple, like that was like a vanguard against the sea. What if we have like these guys that now think blue is the way to go, and it's just like defiling the old city or something with these new colors? And so that was an interesting take. I don't know if any of this will actually make it in, but it was at least a visual point that I could like kind of hold on to. Blue being kind of more of a symbol of status. So you'll see like these blue buildings here, and then blue buildings on top higher up, and this would be like the second tier or something. And then you have these banners that are ribbons that go across, and let's see, now we have this tier 1 or tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. And now I'll go into some of the other stuff. So I was mentioning how this tier 2 is kind of like above tier 1, and this is what that would look like. You'd have tier 1 with this whole marketing thing going on, and these wood planks to showcase that they're just kind of covering it up rather than actually like replacing it or something like that with their new materials. And again, this scaffolding here with the wood going up, and that would probably be how it would go. One thing that I had talked about with Shawn before was this idea of color justification. And so what I like to do, and how you make a scene really feel like it's one thing and not totally out of place, is you have this justification for your colors. And so what I mean by that is like the saturation or the intensity of a blue, for example, needs to be earned. So like if I were to just bring in, if I were to go here and I'd just bring in this blue right here, it just doesn't fit in the painting. Like it just sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's not worth it. But this one feels a little bit more earned because we have a slightly desaturated, like coming towards this blue. You can see like since color is more relative, it's kind of like a little art journey here. But we have the saturation going from this orange over to this like more saturation or less saturation, and then we get finally like going into this blue here, and then as you look up, you'd probably see even more blue ribbons, and therefore, be inspired by the upper tier or something like that, rather than completely oppressed by it. But yeah, so you'd have, as you look up, more and more and more blue, and rather than just having, let's say like blue down here, or like a really, like instead of having a blue down here, we have like little paint drips that are like desaturated or something like that, coming down. And right here we have white in comparison to the blue, to show that it's fully desaturated. So it's a little bit of art talk in there, but again, that was just some of my thought processes. And then we have, this was what Harrison has been working on from the concept, is like this sort of upper tier sort of thing. And I wasn't totally sold on there just being like stone bridgeways everywhere. So I wanted to actually stack and use buildings to like bridge those gaps instead of having like just bridges everywhere. And you can see a little bit of this this blue here on the also a lot more blue, especially in comparison to the sea, because they get a nice view of the sea while the other guys don't. And then go ahead if you want to say anything. It's
been great. I've just been listening, man. Every time you go through it, I love it. And it's really rad that again, not that I keep harping on that, but it's to me it's a really cool trait. Given the scale of what we're making, the fact that all the stuff that you just articulated, it's stuff that you put together so quickly, and it's like, all right, here are my thoughts on it. And then in real time, we talk through, and then you're like, you go on another tear and kind of like, okay, well, with that in mind, what about this, right? And it's fantastic because, that gives me confidence that we can iterate and knock out so much of this that we need to be able to, basically move that into the development pipeline and then start tackling another piece and another piece. So, I love that you think about those things in that way. The thing I want to remind people is when you see these sort of sprawling pictures, it's if you're coming from, we're rooted in that classic era of MMOs, but that our cities, I think someone in chat said, put it really well the other day, which is they're not starting cities, they're cities. And these are places that you're going to continue to explore for the life of the game. We want a lot of nooks and crannies and depth, because there are encounter spaces. You can run into combat in the city. There's a lot to there's a lot to do here, and it's stuff that you're going to unlock or discover or run into over time, right? So we want them to have a very utilitarian, like, good feel. You should be able to find stuff that you need to find fairly easily, and there'll be the clean lanes that you can move through, and you're not just always going to be stuck and lost in these cities. But for every clean thoroughfare that moves you through sort of those spots that you need to find easily as a newer player, we want just as much sprawling off through alleyways and into buildings and into underground areas, etc. That gives you stuff to explore, stuff to earn over time, and then always a sense that there's something that you haven't found yet.
Mm-hmm. And something that kind of speaks to that a little bit is this next piece right here is we have the upper tier, correct, right? But we also have under here, which was one of the very very I guess one of the pieces that I really liked liked doing, which was like what does it look like under here, where they're covering up things with boards, and you get this basically like the city tops of something before, and like maybe you can find an entrance somewhere or something along those lines where it's like not completely covered up by sand, and or dirt or whatever. And there's like that hint, that railing of like a society that was here before, and it's almost like a catacomb type area, but it's not quite because it's just under, and you can expect to run into like someone that's like doing some bad deals or something like in here, that sort of thing.
And it's I see that and I picture there's already a bit of a descent, and then I picture you taking that left, and there's even that corridor. It's you're getting away from the light of the that's coming through the boards, and you're going in a bit deeper, and maybe it kind of there's a T junction and goes off and maybe back up, but then to the left maybe it goes down a bit more, and then there's a door, right? And this whole city's been built on ruins. You'll find with our game world, we've talked a lot about this onion of a game world, rather than always having to add a new continent or a new planet or moon or whatever. And one of these years we may get there. We wanted there to just be layer upon layer upon layer. And so even in developing the timeline for the world and the civilizations and the understanding of like how this place has evolved over the ages. It was done with the intent to be able to have that thing where you discover it's like, holy shit, under the thing that's under the thing, there's this other thing, and it's very much justified in history. Sakaj said, ruins on ruins on ruins on ruins. Yes. So.
And then we have, I'd imagine, like, for whatever reason, there'd just be maybe a little deep gnome here. Giving you the creepy eyes.
Hi, guys. Are you going down? I'm going down.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, let's get rid of that guy. But yeah, that's the that was sort of what I wanted to do actually was I wanted to explore what it might like over top on these with some like really deep blue buildings and stuff like that. But again, that would just be another piece that extends my understanding rather than like really, because I need to do a really good check-in with a mod. Actually, that would be a good thing to do. But we had talked, and he liked the idea of this next area being very like super just full of color in comparison to the drab other side, and the bustling like reds that red and oranges that you get at the bottom near this area. So it's finding like a nice color palette for each area that fits. Like I hint at the desaturated like yellowish sandstone sort of thing, but then when we get here we're really in it. And then I hint at a little bit of that blue, but once you're in it, it's like, whoa, that's nice and pristine. I'd like to live there. And then the next thing is going to be this like kind of higher, like a harder to enter probably for lower class, I guess civilians or people.
Yeah, and so this city is run by an extremely powerful trade guild. And by nature of the fact that they are a trade guild, they developed this guild with very sort of, they developed in an intentional manner with an extremely long-term plan in mind. And so they've basically made themselves a key part of everything that happens in our game world. And this being essentially their known capital, this massive trade hub. You'll see that they've got their own militia, they've got their own organizations, they've got they've got essentially the city broken up into these tiers, and you can see it in like the backdrop that we have here. Like if we sort of the silhouettes, we've always had. Can I get to where it's a little bit easier to see? There's always been this like multiple elevation changes, and then there's this place up here. And so as we're building up and increasing the where did you go? Increasing the sort of the level of detail and complexity and the verticality even in the lower tiers. We'll be building out that silhouette, and more will be I think more overtly expressing the lore of that organization, and you'll start to see it in both the environment art and then some of what we do with some of the characters. So.
I was just gonna keep give painting a try here.
Cool. Hey, Grix. By the way, Garamon Optic, thank you for the follows.
Something that I wanted to mention is going forward, now that some of these characters have kind of been shown, and there seems to be more positive reception to them than even I would have guessed. But I wanted to and still want to like stream some of this stuff, like I have been streaming for the guys in Slack. So like, for example, I might be able to stream, once a week or twice a week, where I actually tackle a certain design or something along those lines. And that could be very fun, especially with an audience. There's one thing that I need to kind of catch a balance of, though, for sure, is something that I used to do, which I've learned not to do, which is designed by council, or designed by what's the
design by committee?
There? Yeah, designed by the committee. Council makes more sense, because everybody has their, but committee, it's like that's just too many people. And so the idea was that, back I used to look at a piece and I go, okay, what's wrong? And everybody, throws in their 2 cents. And then I kind of lost myself as an artist, because I was just designing what everybody else thought was good, not what I thought was good. And that was a totally different thing. But now I've kind of learned to hone and tie in together what I think is really good and powerful and has like a really interesting take on it, and then kind of give it to people to say, hey, where do we actually need to go from this, that sort of thing. So so designing and doing concept art with that in mind, I think will be pretty good. But in the future, I just don't want people to be like, like, why is this guy doing something so bad, or not just bad, but like so different from my take. It's like, we'll get checks. We'll definitely have checks in with the team and everything.
Are you concepting our capsule men?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm actually doing right now. There's a little bit of lag on my Photoshop. I don't know, Photoshop's been kind of wank like that recently. So I might have to restart my Photoshop, but otherwise it should be good. I think it's because the character Photoshop file ends up being, I think it's like nearly 4 gigs now, so it kind of just tanks my computer. But let's see. Actually, I'll save this and I'll close out my Photoshop and then.
So you reset. I will show the player characters again while you're doing that.
Absolutely.
Since some people have come in a bit late, some people are tardy. So get a quick view of the shapes at a distance. And then we'll start over with the wood elves again.
And for those that are looking, those swatches up above are what are they're like a quick pitch of what the skin tones might be. So you might be able to play a more green wood elf, which would be pretty cool, and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then a more pine type look and more yellow type look. That's kind of where those are going.
So wood elves, humans. And when you look at like human as an anchor point, you can look at our model and kind of see how we'd probably be translating this. We'll see how this starts to line up as we build out the rest of the races, but you can start to see that low poly look with the focus on paint. Maybe mentally try to make that transition. The immaculate high elves. Deep elves. The only slightly bigger ogres.
Only slightly.
Only slightly. Have to put the deep gnome next to the ogre. I think it's like this big.
Oh yeah, balance.
Are the deep elves good or evil? I think the easiest way to summarize them would be evil, but if you
evil,
look
but
at
that's it. Just evil, but ...
But like, right? Kind of like in, well, I wouldn't even go as far as to say the high elves are good. The high elves are superior. Ogres. Deep dwarves.
Just for those that are tuning in, one of the key things that we definitely wanted for all this, for the whole lineup, was something for each type of player to resonate with. And so that's why we're hitting these archetypes so harsh. It's like there's a really intense archetype for the dwarf, but then also we have this golem archetype for the deep dwarf. That's mixed a little bit with that chaos dwarf from Warhammer sort of deal, or a dark dwarf, or I forget what they're because they're known as a couple different things, and it's blanking on me right now. But yeah.
Yeah, Belfaster. I would say like with the deep elves, they probably don't see themselves that way, and there may be some justification for their beliefs. The question about deep dwarves wearing armor. So we've discussed that a little bit, and we've talked about both options. Both the potentially just changes the nature of the skin, but I started picturing them with like cloth and leather and other things over their stone skin, and for whatever reason, we'll see if when we concept it, if it makes sense. Excuse me. Whenever I pictured that juxtaposition of those materials on there, which then they're like, of course, but I don't want to be naked. there's just something there that seemed like it might be really cool, and it might be a nice way to juxtapose different textures. And so, yeah.
And that was something that I was a little bit concerned about. I was looking at it. I was like, can this work? And I thought, yeah, I think it could work. And so I started to concept something out. But what I really need to do is figure out what these guys would wear in their home first. I think beyond this, and it might just be that they're comfortable like this. And we have like they said, like someone said, we have like a way to take the material or texture or something, turn it into like a homogenized like glow or something, and then put that within whatever piece of armor that you have, and see how that affects the rest, or something like that could systemize it. But otherwise, like I'm totally down to see what it looks like with normal gear on, or like leather or something on top. And because like I'd imagine that, you know, like we don't want scratches on our skin, and we wear armor and stuff like that. Like their scratches are there for good, you know, so because they're rock. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe wearing armor is actually a pretty good idea.
So if you look at the top right at the profile picture, Goblin is the one speaking when I'm not speaking. And Goblin is our concept artist. And so we are looking now at the dwarves. I love her arms. Halflings. The genomes. I don't want to rush past anybody. The deep gnomes. Goblins. And trolls.
You guys may have noticed on the goblins that there's the green skin color, but then we have a blue, yellow, and red. That's something that I'm throwing out there as like it's a possibility, and that's mostly because we have goblins that are different colors or different types based off of their location. So, you know, sand goblins, or like, let's say volcanic goblins or something, and or like ice goblins or something along those lines. So I'm unsure of how that would actually affect gameplay. We haven't had that conversation yet, whether or not like whatever you choose has like some like resistance or something built into it. But what I do know is that as far as player variance and or something along those lines, it would definitely help people be like expressing who they want to be as. Like a red goblin would be, you know, that it's very devil-like, so you can kind of expect like, you know, that sort of player to be a little like that, or feel like that when they play. And I really enjoy that. And but that's something we haven't totally discussed yet. But because I ended up throwing some of those palettes on, I think it was about 2-3 days ago, something like that. So
yeah, like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the question I had is, well, we're, you know, if we've got fire goblins and sand goblins and water goblins and ice goblins and things like that, do we save those colors for the NPCs, or is it something that we feel that the players, it doesn't take anything away from the world to have those players be able to potentially pick those colors and identify then with them? Or is it something that we have a limited set first and then allow for more over time. Those will be things that we can talk about and figure out and you know, as we work this year. Oh, and not to forget
Oh yeah,
the little mandrake that you snuck on there.
I really like that mandrake.
You really do.
He's
So those of you that are in our Discord, we've had some discussion of that variety in terms of the you know, do we have bonuses or does body type sort of impact weapon damage and things of that nature? The discussion on starting traits and unique sort of racial traits and all that. Hop in Discord and we'll hit it there. I think it'll be a lot easier for us to be, at least for me, to be more articulate in that context. So hop in Discord. I'll use this moment again to pimp the mailing list. We're at like 840. We'd like to get 1,000 people on the mailing list for 2022. Please share it around or sign up. We just made a new landing page for it. So it looks a bit better. It looks like this. So come check it out. Please sign up, share it around. Will the race concept art image be added to the website or posted on Discord? Yeah. We'll be getting it out there. Let's see. What does the starter experience look like thematically, Shawn? I would think that it plays into your customization place in the world. One of the things that we want to do is, and I won't go super deep now because we'll keep it focused on the art, but we've got ideas on how to allow for a lot more flexibility in where you start, but then that has an impact on your starting experience because we want the world to be very big. We want travel to feel like it's substantive, but players do, you know, when you come in and like you're wanting to play a deep gnome and your friends wanting to play a troll, we're going to provide the opportunity for you to pick where you start. And so you'll customize your character. You'll do your initial character customization separate from that process. It'll be traditional. Design your character, go in, but you can pick where you want to start. But your experience based on whether or not you're a troll starting in a troll area or a troll starting in some other area will be a bit different. And so, yeah, that's we'll go deep on that, and we'll actually be playing with that a good bit as we're working through the proof of concept this year. I'll keep it to that. Yeah, Belfast, you're I think you're hitting on it, so feel free to keep doing that. Nick said we only need 30 more in Discord for new features. Join us there. Conversation has been active as of late. Yep. So there's a lot of discussion goes on there. We need 30 more people to hit 500, which then unlocks some features for us, which will actually be pretty beneficial. So if you're already into Discord, that's great. If not, please join. If you're already into Discord, grab some other people and let them know about the project, please. Cool. All right. We'll be talking about these guys a lot in the coming year. So pop back. Oh, you've been drawing. Great.
Oh yeah. I've been on my way. Trying to figure out how we might do this sort of like this tower temple slash this thing that is basically now in front of it. Again, this is just more aesthetically driven, and I think there should be and is room for that especially to jump off of. And I'm not sure that we're gonna all really like this nice blue place, but and maybe there's like some plaster or something that needs to be so they're not completely totally what's the word like covered everything in blue. But I do like this, like if you get over the wall or something. For those that didn't see, it was something like this where you would be getting over that wall and then you'd be seeing something like this where it's like, whoa, this is totally different, and I can see why these guys are just above or in a totally different area than the rest of Night Harbor.
And so this is that essentially I was picturing coming across that bridge that you were showing. There's a bit of a blue and like right on the other side. So yeah, like in this area.
Yeah.
Yep. And then this sort of sets the tone for the thoroughfare and the corridors that that then have, you know, like the temple backdrop and things like that behind it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm just looking at what that might look like. It's I'm not totally sold on this, but that's usually what exploring concepts is all about. Is not being totally sure, then finding out, oh, you know what, that really hits.
So I was about to say the shapes that you have, you know, sticking out there, like those spires that pop up, like they really caught the eye, and I like the spikiness of them. Right, it feels a bit more ambitious and
so that you're talking about was it these guys right here, this spikes?
right.
Yeah. And so that's something I was like, I kind of like this like this aesthetic of rounded, but at the same time I'm like, maybe I should just go spikes. You know, it had it in the it felt really good in the concept art, and so yeah, and maybe it is totally like that, where it's like that's this sort of area is dropped down a whole bunch, and there's this other side of me that wonders, like, if this were to be so tall, could there be like a second layer or something like this, like that, where instead of it feeling so like totally boxy, there's actually like layers to it where we can look from above or something like this. You have like a balcony or
Yeah.
something.
Doing something, because you got so much real estate here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Belfaster asks, Goblin, do you ever go over what gear setup you use to do your art? Probably obvious to other artists, but are you using a digital tablet or some kind with a stylus?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now I'm using a Cintiq that I had about maybe 4 or 5. No, it's like 7 years old now. The 22 HD, so it's a screen one. I got it a long time ago, and thank God it's lasted me this long because it's freaking expensive. But other than that, just Photoshop and some brushes that I use every single day. It's like there's like a really nice setup that I like, and it gives a little bit of texture to everything. Like this brush right here is very, very nice. You can give a little bit of a texture to it. Something that you guys didn't see, it was off stream. Let me see if I can find a good color for it that would work. So this, yeah, maybe this would work actually. Maybe a little bit more, like a different type of blue maybe. But one things that I really like doing is I'll take this brush and I'll do something like this, or I'll make a path, and then I'll take this, I'll just squish it into perspective, but then we can also grab each corner and really push it from perspective, like into exactly where, say it's coming straight from there. And when you do that, it just, holy, like as soon as you do that, there's like a whole roadway, and it's super simple. Things like that, tricks like that help you, because like other people, you might do something like you draw like each one, like along this line or something, and you have to be perfect on perspective, and that's it's definitely a hard thing, but lots of tricks like that helps a lot.
Belfaster said it's like watching Bob Ross work. 1 second it's nothing, and then it's like, holy shit, it's a mountain. The other morning, I swear, maybe this wasn't the case, but this is now my story. I'll stick to it. The other morning when you were working on the first Night Harbor stuff, and you like, for me that was my morning. It was like eating breakfast. You're working on it. I'm watching, talking about it. It's just like, it was like one image appeared, and then all of a sudden the other thing that you just started turned into an image, and then you started working on the other thing. It was just like, wow, okay. It starts with shapes, and then it's this thing that's telling a story. It's super easy to wrap my head around.
Yeah, there's what's it called? Like shapes are that's one thing that I absolutely love is like shape and color design. Usually when I start a painting, Like you saw me here. What I did for this was I basically took this and then I like copied it and I flipped it around. So like part of that painting is still kind of up here somewhere. I painted over it since, but the idea is that you're setting in with a good color palette, and usually I do that. I start with color for the first part. I do things a lot differently than I guess the modern concept artists when it comes to either characters and environments and stuff like that. I definitely start with like a different set of things. Like for characters, like I start with almost exclusively I start with the character's eyes, which is like that's super weird for a concept artist. Like I know that video you shared, it had me do like I did a character kind of like this, where I drew out the silhouette, and then that silhouette ended up being like what the characters were made out of and everything. Hello. He's saying hi. He's waving. But I don't do that anymore. I don't do this sort of thing. Instead, I usually almost exclusively start with like the eyes, because what ends up happening is when you go in and you draw like a character's eyes, you can kind of tell what kind of character they are just from that. And then based off of that, like this eye, and it might not look like an eye right now, but you know, you know a little bit about the character already, and then you can base your design off of what type of person they are or what type of character they are. And this is going to turn out to be a goblin.
What are the odds?
You know, and he's smiling widely, and then you can base your thing off of that. Then I think I got his smile way wrong. That's fine. But now he's a little bit more cutesy here, and so based off of that, I'd probably, do I need him to be a little less cutesy or more cutesy? And then this is turning almost into like a little imp than it is a goblin. And usually there's a little bit more direction involved. So it's like, hey, I have a goblin, or hey, I have a dwarf, or hey, and there's like an aesthetic that really drives it. So there's a personality that you're trying to capture, and if you capture that in the eyes and then the face, and then beyond that in the musculature or the anatomy or whatever, the proportions, then once you do all that, like then you're basically designing the silhouette itself. Like a lot of people design the silhouette first because they think it needs to read, but you look at some of the artwork from Yoshitaka Amano, he's the guy that did Final Fantasy. Like all of his designs are, I'm pretty sure, were just drawn out with ink and pencil, and then he had silhouette in mind, so you don't actually need to have just the blocked out silhouette. But all those characters and designs for Final Fantasy are still being used today in Final Fantasy. Like they're harkening back to it as if it's like an archetype, which is absolutely crazy for one artist to have like a line of monsters that are considered archetypes, like the Leviathan or the Behemoth. It's fantastic, and that's what I love. I love being able to do that sort of approach than in comparison to thumbnailing.
Mm-hmm. So there was a question we missed earlier. Do you ever wake up like in the middle of the night, or sort of startle awake and like have to draw something down? Yes.
Yeah. There's this dream that I've been having recently about actually is a dream I've been having about a certain type of dwarf, and I've been like, oh, I need to get this out. I need to get this dwarf out. Here, 1 second. I'll set the stage for it. Maybe because this Night Harbor thing I can get done, whenever. But this thing, like this dwarf, I know I've been thinking about it for a while. So I know what he looks like. So I'm gonna see if I can quickly do a sketch of him, because it's an idea that I've been really thinking about, and I don't know if it's gonna work or not. But there's this dwarf with these like ram horns, and I'm not saying it's for this, but it's been like in my head of like, God, I need to get this out. So yes, there's certain times where I absolutely need to, or I have like a really vivid, you know, like memory of something or something like that. But yeah, there's like this dwarf ram thing that I've been really thinking about, that I've been wanting to figure out how he looks. And I don't know if would he have spiky ears?
Let's say go with it. Yeah, it's funny. There's been so much going on behind the scenes lately that almost every night I go to bed with either some visual of something that's being worked on or something that's being discussed, like firmly stuck in my head. It's been nice to be able to drift off into imagination space like that.
There's this what's it called? You know, we were talking a little bit about animations, and I was like, oh, I need to get it on some of that, and I'll probably do some animation like poses or like keyframe animations for. Like, I was thinking of what it would look like for the troll to cast something.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, she would totally have like one hand sort of down and then be like twisting her other hand from that hand, like in almost like in a circle, like she's stirring up a spell. I was like, that would totally be it. And I was thinking about what would it look like for that to actually happen. And there's that sort of thing I just absolutely love.
Well, it's super helpful too. So we did a bit of that when I was working on DC Universe because we had Jim Lee was working on it with us. He was based out of La Jolla, and we were in San Diego, right? And so him and his team, the guys at Wildstorm, yeah, comics, like we were able to use them. Oh wait, I started in. Crap, I told that wrong. When I started on it, I was in San Diego, but then yeah, we worked on it in Austin. I'm dumb. Anyways, so we would when we'd go out and work with them, or those guys would come in, like they'd be able to knock out like the sort of like the build up, and then like the sort of the peak of the action, and then the impact for like an animation, and then we could give that to the animators, and it was a huge help because then you really capture like those key moments of that you see in comics where it's still by like just sort of knowing where to focus. And I think with what we described for the approach that we want to take on animation, I think that would be hugely helpful, and especially if it's one of those things that allows us to iterate pretty quickly visually before we even get in and start messing around.
Well, maybe his axes are wrong. I want them to be splayed out, kind of like that. Yeah, maybe something like that with his hands. Yeah, it's some like that. Who knows? And then possibly some. I'm not saying this is. Sorry, this is totally sidetracked. But you got me thinking, and I just remembered it, and I was like, it's like, oh, I didn't have time to do this before, but I'm kind of like, well, this is. I kind of like this this guy. Dwarf satyr. I think someone mentioned it. I'm not sure about the nose, but we'll see. Anyway, back to
keep it for sure. We've got a lot of world to fill in.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Something that really helps as well is, I mean, like I've been doing this for a really long time, so a lot of things that I kind of do, I'm lucky enough to have spent the time to just like really have it be almost like second nature. So I don't need to think about whether or not I can render this thing or whether or not I can tackle this certain thing. It's more like what do I need to tackle when you're thinking about like the subject matter rather than whether or not you can. Like that's a good sign. Still wondering about this these staircases. They might be too harsh just to like really square box off staircases, but at the same time it might work. So This is probably what one of the streams would look like. I might talk less, to be honest. But yeah. And sorry, I haven't been engaging with the chat as much. I've been hoping that Shawn takes a little bit of that.
I think we've been covering most of it.
Okay, good. I just haven't been looking, so I don't know.
Yeah, if we missed anything, folks can let us know.
That feels kind of good.
Yeah, it does. It's interesting because I was looking at the elevated walkway, and I was curious, right? And I was like trying to justify it and think about rationale. But now that it's built into the architecture and it's reinforcing the verticality, now it makes a lot more sense.
You could probably have like some rooftop here or something.
Well, we had also talked about the opportunity for a little bit of green, some foliage or some.
Yep. I think this would be the totally the place to fit it in. You're right. Let me see if I can.
Because as I was looking at like what is in this negative space over here on the left, right? It was like, oh, that's I started picturing planters or some things that were.
Let's try to justify it a little bit here. Oh, kind of like that. There's actually, you know what? It might be nice to go look at Versailles, Hall of Mirrors type stuff, that kind of garden, because I wondered they are super into I think it was the Sun King from France that really liked that sort of stuff, but his whole thing was basically this museum that was, or not museum, his palace that was facing the sun, and any visitor that he cared about had to go through this thing called the Hall of Mirrors to get to his throne, and that was super cool, and it marries this sun that I had sort of built on in behind with green in a really nice way. So I wonder if that might be the way to go. It's a beautiful place too.
You bike by the castle every day to work? Well, that's a wonderful view.
Damn, that's fantastic. Maybe you know more and I got something totally wrong. I hope I got it right. It's art history. There's something still in there from school. Yeah, so I wonder if I'm gonna get some greens in here. I like that idea of those shapes that are almost like following, or there's yeah, I'd like the we'll see. I'll see what I can get green in or not. Because the green, green is nice.
When you did that, I almost pictured like a bit of tendrils. Then like something that kind of comes down a little.
Yeah. Like this was, I was so focused on the Versailles thing that I was like, do I want that? But I'm unsure. If I do that, I want it to be like a plant, like maybe this, where this could actually be more of a platform. This could be blocked down, and then this right here could drop down with like an actual plant that's hanging. So we have like a green here, we have a green here, a green here. That's all, and then possibly some leaves or something that drop down from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that way it's less like, hey, these are ruins, and more like, no, this is a nice lived in place. And I'd have to give it a little basket too.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been imagining that this is still a superficial layer that's been built over that ruin, right? And so it's all new. I mean, the stuff that we're looking at here is, relatively speaking, very, very new. Night Harbor's only been around for a century or two.
I would also say like if this blue is not working for you, then we can change something up. This is just a expansion of what this was.
Yeah, I mean, so there are a couple of the key elements with regards to the skyline that we've discussed before that I think would be behind this, because this is essentially the sort of the thoroughfare street level of this zone. Maintaining, and you had asked, like, can we maybe do something different with that skyline? Or are you set on that? And
I think I was totally wrong with that. What I totally see now is, like, if we do have this blue sky coming in here, it's almost going to be as if this blue is touching the sky, and that's going to look really, really cool. So, like, say you're a little guy down here and you're looking up, like, that blue right here is just going to, like, if we can color match this so it hits the same color as the sky, it's almost going to like you'll see the background, and then you'll see like these little spires of it going like almost blue and then totally be part of it, and that's going to look really, really cool.
the last 20 seconds of that, my damn headphones cut off again. I really wish I could turn off the power saving on them or whatever it is.
Yeah. I was just mentioning these sky elements, like the towers would like bleed into the sky rather than like jut out against them, and that would look really cool.
Yeah, I mean,
So it'd be something like that.
So I've been fixated on, just popping. I've been fixated on there being at the sort of pinnacle of it. There's the dome for like the council room. So as long as behind everything else, there's that opportunity for the bigger dome that you can see from, across the zone essentially. And then there's some stuff that we can talk about off stream lore wise, that I think, based on the Langsdorfian League's sort of background, some of the colors and the shapes that you're using in here, I think will play into that nicely. But yeah, I don't want to necessarily spill all the beans, but I think it's going in a really good direction.
Mm-hmm. This actually could be nice. I was a little worried about that. I was like, wait, hold on, didn't I choose this other thing? But no, this is pretty cool. And maybe the dome right now is a little too fat. So I'll relax on how fat it is. That's one thing that Shawn and the team keep mentioning to me. Like, I go fast. I'm like, yeah, I do. That's one thing I'm proud of. Okay, that's one thing I'm allowed to be proud of.
You're allowed to be proud of it, dude. Yeah, and again, I think I mentioned it during the character stuff, is when you're able to go fast, and we're able to play with a lot of ideas, because it's different when, and I've been in situations, it's not to knock on it or whatever, but it's when something's taking a week or so for an iteration, 3 days, and 3 days is essentially a work week. Let's be real. Then you got to be more specific, because you don't have enough opportunity to iterate and make mistakes. But when we work at this speed, then we can riff on stuff and play around. Question of what level of fantasticalness are you generally shooting for at this time, Shawn? Like, when I contrast some of what we did in EQ with some of the mistakes of, say, Vanguard, EQ had some lovely, unexplainable, unrealistic, fantastical stuff that came out of both the lore and then, of course, Rick's concepts. It's funny. I was picturing Rick's concepts when even when we were first looking at the shape that you're doing for the troll goblin. Like, when that was first just kind of more of an outline, it made me think of Rick's concept, right? Even just sort of the sort of chunkiness here and the styling and these shapes. It's funny, Bill. This is Bill, right? Fisher, we'll talk. Um, the yep. Rick lives in Hamburg, like an hour and a half from here. It was cool. I had a chance to catch up with him a little bit a few months ago, but he travels a lot. So yeah, when we look at this in general, I mean, you can kind of see the vibe that we're going for. It's my concern has always been that we fall into like the too realistic or too grim or too serious. I think we can make a environment and a game that is serious enough that it's respectable, and stands on its own, and is distinct from like the over stylized, too silly, too cartoony, things that may be out there. But the charm that came with like classic EQ, spent so much time thinking about it. I don't know if it's a byproduct of like the Ricks and Docs and Rosie and all the contributors of that time, but it was a serious enough world that it was respectable, but it was so damn like charming in so many ways that it afforded so much imagination, right? And so even if you're young or you're a grown ass adult, you could be like a burly, cynical, gruff dude, but the inner child in you and the part of your like brain that wants to go into a fantastical space, um, it serves as such a good context for that, such a good platform for it. So yeah, I think, the decisions we've been making with regards to level of detail to let your brain fill in the space, right? Like the art style in general, going with a more hand painted look with very distinct shapes that we get from lower poly. Shape is always being discussed. And then, being able to leverage like the lighting and the fog and stuff to make it feel even more fantastic. Yeah, it's a lot about leaving those blanks for your mind to fill in. A lot about setting a context, that you're doing a lot of the sort of work on your own and just sort of chunking it and filling it in. And then so many different things that we talk about with regards to like the way that we want to do the data design for the content and the nooks and crannies and everything else, and interesting scheduling of content spawning and all that. It's all about just constantly trying to reinforce that sense of mystery and wonder and wondering, what else may be here? What else may spawn here? If I come back during the right lunar cycle, like, is this place going to have a secret for me, right? It's all about discovering those secrets. And yeah, so this art style is very much in line with nailing it. And, like I said early on, some of it I was like, oh man, we're hitting the edge of my comfort zone, but it's good that we did, right? Because folks, you seem to like it. And, as I started looking more at the iterations and all that, I'm like, oh man, that could be really fun. So yeah, that's my ramble, Bill. I think that answers your question. No redheads in the lineup? As a redhead, you feel saddened by this? Oh man, that's a fair point. I mean, the options will exist, but the fact that we didn't put them in from the onset.
True.
Let me see.
Yeah, the options definitely will exist. That's something that I'm really excited to dive into. Something I was also thinking is like I cannot wait to get into some of the class stuff. And I was wondering like when we get into some of the class, like what each class kind of archetype looks like, and what it means to fulfill that fantasy. Like there's going to be a lot of opinions, and I'm like that's one thing that I'm really excited to dive into. And I think what I'll probably do is just for keeping it, let's say, keeping it at a manageable level for me. want to like go in and be like, what's like the most iconic, and then like the least iconic version of what you know what you would imagine to be like a druid or something, and see if we can go or and find our limits there, where it's like, no, we're not going to have a like an ex druid or something. We're not going to have a something that can't fit that archetype well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a maybe a gnome druid or like a deep gnome druid might not work, or just to see like where or like a dwarf or something. Like we might see where that can land and where that can't land. But hitting the archetype as hard as we can, of course. Like when a wood elf druid, like we're gonna fucking, that's gonna look really cool, and I'm really looking forward to using that, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, and as we're discussing some of the range, like for the various races, and it's with potentially allowing for a certain amount of flex into unexpected classes and stuff as well. So I think it'll be a fun set of discussions.
Yeah, I'm not at this point. I'm not willing to like put my neck out there or anything. I'm mostly here to just like push and see what might look good or what might not look good, because there's definitely limits that I don't want to push. Like having a deep gnome druid, I just feel does not work.
You don't think so?
But then there might be someone that does feel like it.
There's a lot of fungi. There's a lot of fungi in the deep.
True.
We were talking about that, and they like fungi.
That's an option. Yeah. But that's something that I love, because I'm like, I can't see it, and then all of a sudden, someone says, no, it can work, and I'm like, maybe it can work. Yeah.
Ham and I have had this conversation. Was it this week? This week? No, wait. What is today? Wednesday? Maybe this week. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's something I'm super excited to tackle in the future.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited right now. The stuff that we've been doing on a lot of sort of the building blocks for the finalizing the racial stuff, right? Getting that integrated into Confluence and then cleaning all that up so that when you guys go in and you look at the races, it's the most up to date sort of view in them, and you get that perspective and some of what we've been talking about, some of the changes and stuff. I'm so excited that hopefully I'll be starting to get that moved over like this weekend, and then that will help seed some of those ideas, and maybe when you think about it, you're like, deep gnome druid, that seems, oh wait, no, that maybe isn't so weird.
Yeah, and that's gonna be very exciting. And there's so many different combinations that I just again, I do stem from WoW a little bit, so I'm like, combinations of like, why didn't an undead hunter work before, and then they brought it in, but then they brought in a monk Tauren, and I was okay, it makes sense, I guess. What was it? I had a name for a Tauren monk, and I forget exactly what it was. Kalfu, maybe?
Kalfu.
Maybe it was Kalfu. It was something dumb like that.
Is the nipple at the top of this building intentional?
Oh, this little, yeah. I kind of liked it, but here, 1 second. Let's bring in some of the other stuff. It's spiky nipple. I brought
now it's a Kaiser helmet.
Yeah. Let's see. There was this.
Oh, it's something in the background. Okay. Is it? I'm assuming.
Let's see. Oh no, it was supposed to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be kind of like the tip of, but at the same time, it did break up the silhouette a bit. So that's something. There's something to be said that I absolutely like I love, which is like when you're doing concepts and someone notices something or thinks of something and you're like, doesn't really look that good to me or something. As an artist, you have to kind of say like, it doesn't really matter how experienced someone is with art. Like if it looks off to them, it looks off to them, and like you have to figure out why. It's like the same thing as like the only real like design that people notice is bad design.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're going through an airport and you're like, where am I going? And the signs don't like lead up and you notice it because it's badly designed. Versus like if it's perfectly designed, you don't go, wow, that was such a great experience. I followed the signs and now here I'm at. Like nobody says that. So people notice bad design. And so the same sort of thing happens with art. It's like people notice something that really irks them, you know, and so paying attention to those. Like you don't need to be, I don't need to be listening to like a master painter or whatever tell me about something. I can be listening to like, you know, like my girlfriend or my mom or something like that, and they're like, I don't think it looks good. And you're like, okay, well, I'll change it.
Well, it's kind of like that design thing of like, you get feedback and then you're like, well, you're not playing it right. You know, it's like, yeah, that's not how it works. I know all about bad design. There's a reason why I became a producer. After 11 years of doing bad design, I decided I'd make checklists instead.
Yeah, I'm also really excited for the race, like interactions and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons why. And I just want to say this: the reasons why I played World of Warcraft for the reasons that I did was because it was a very social game for me. And when they moved into like the more gamey aspect and started to lose the social aspects of the game and the world aspects of the game, I started to fall off of that, and it makes me excited to go, hey, like this game is for the social aspect. Like you're going to require people to be with you in a party. It's kind of that old school type, and like that just brings me complete joy. Like, and not only complete joy, but also like I really want to serve it well, and that's something that I'm very excited for, I guess.
Yeah, dude, we are very excited to have you on board. I just looked at the time a second ago. We're rolling up. We just crossed the 3-hour mark on the stream. We're rolling up on 11 p.m. my time. So, let's talk about you. Before we get out of here, you mentioned that your, oh man, I love the way this is shaping up. Like, I'll mention some stuff off stream, but it's really, this upper tier's clicked in a unexpected way. Maybe you already see it, but if not, then I'll be really excited to sort of to hit you up on what I'm thinking here. Yeah, but so you're going to be streaming soon, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So everybody keep an eye on the Discord. We've got announcements going, I believe now. I'm also, this stream is hosting. I think I've got all three of your Twitches linked in here now. Pattis, Zukin, and you, Goblin. But keep an eye out. Please join the Discord so you don't miss it. I'll link it again here. But I think, maybe a lot of you got it. Sign up to the mailing list. Discord, we're, 30 away from hitting 500, which will unlock some functionality for us, which will be helpful. And then you can keep up on all the stuff here. Mailing list, we're at like 840. It'd be nice to get to 1,000 for going into 2022. And let's see. Yeah, I think that covers that. Oh, and if you want to get us anything for Christmas, if those of you that have been hanging out and you're always like, hey, how can I support or whatever? It's like, just please keep letting people know. I'm noticing a lot of like comments in different places on like people's videos or people that have made videos recently, like mentioning a game, and it's so honestly, it's really amazing to kind of see that support. It's like kind of every time like Nick links something in chat, like a new video or something like that, it's like, holy shit, that's so cool. You know, we're seeing it in different Reddit discussions and all that stuff. So please just keep getting the word out there. Let people know about the website. Let people know about the mailing list. I'm going to be trying to be a little bit more active with things like the mailing list and start to get things that, like surveys and stuff like that out there. And yeah, it's huge for us, and it's always nice to have goals with some of this stuff. So 500 people in the Discord and 1,000 people on the mailing list, and that would be a very cool Christmas for us. If we don't hit it, we don't hit it. That's fine, but do what you can. Appreciate it. Yeah, this is really hitting that vibe really, really well, dude. Cool. Oh, I'm about to burst, to be honest with you. So as soon as I'm done here, I'm gonna run to the restroom. But yeah, and we're hitting my bedtime. So when we'll catch up. Let people know when you're going to be streaming. And if you don't run a stream soon, then maybe I'll just see about dragging you back on here. And then I'll just always ask beforehand. But we'll be sharing more of the concept art and things of that nature in the Discord and getting it up on the website and social media and all of that as well. So, yeah.
That sounds absolutely perfect. Yeah, I'll probably be streaming sometime this week at least to get it all started, and then from there, well, we'll see. We'll see. I look forward to streaming and doing some concepts and stuff like that on stream for everybody to see. No, for sure. I just don't know exactly when.
Cool. And to MCP, to answer your question, should be here on Twitch.
Yep.
And then I've been starting to download. Basically, I've got all of the VODs. I'm gonna get all of our M&M VODs up on both the A Loving Robot YouTube channel and then the new Monsters and Memories YouTube channel as well. So
yeah, that'll be super helpful.
Cool. Okay, guys, I'm gonna wrap up here.
I'm gonna stop painting. I've just been kind of going at it. I'll post some of this stuff. Here's a question. When I have a really quick question. I know you got to go, but do we want it so concepts can sort of be fed straight into the Discord, or do we want a little check on Slack first and then head out? Because I'll be doing some stuff on stream, obviously. So it's and then we can do like a sort of checklist or whether or not that's going to make it or something. But that's up to you.
Okay. I mean, we're greedy, so it's always nice to see stuff in Slack. And then, I mean, I'm not overly concerned if you're, like I said, we're very open about the whole process here. So, streaming, it's great. People are going to see it in real time. The actual, like the concepts itself, hit us up on Slack, and then we'll figure out the best way to. I'd like to get like a bit of a pipeline going where we Nick has already set up like all of our social media and stuff like that. So start to get a little bit of a pipeline going where we start updating all sorts of stuff, and really getting this stuff out there so everybody can see it in different places. So, and we'll have Discord on that list as like one of them. And then, yeah, we'll go from there.
It sounds good.
Cool. All right, everybody.
I think that's it. Everybody, thank you for all the kind words on the designs and everything.
Fantastic work, dude, and thank you so much for like walking through the process. It's honestly it's fun to hear your thoughts on this every time. So I'm excited for us to have more of your streams and stuff up. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I will see you again tomorrow, and I'm not sure what we'll be doing, but maybe just run around game or whatever. But tomorrow is Thursday, so it's time to stream. And thanks for showing up today. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.